Oh, I can hear you now. You just kicked in.
Hey,
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, Bruce, how you doing? You all right?
Not bad, Steve. Yourself?
Yeah, we're getting there. I spent 3 hours this afternoon writing a new bit of code and for online booking, only
Yeah.
to get all the way through for it to tell me that there's no way that the payment gateway is going to work.
Awesome. You've got to love computers. It's brilliant.
Oh, they just drive you completely mad,
Mate,
don't they?
tell me about it. Tell
How's
me about it.
is my camera all good today?
Perfect. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
All good.
Okay.
All good.
Cool.
Thank you. Is that a new camera then?
No. But I've had to. Last time I came over here, when I literally, this was, I've been in the office at P&H all week, and I came over here and I'm like, right, okay, turn it on, do some work, and the monitor just wouldn't turn on. So I've had a little bit of a all week with IT stuff, actually, having a bit of a battle with it, if you like. So
it's horrible, isn't it? When it goes wrong, it's the best thing in the world when it all works, but when it goes wrong, you're just like, you're going out the window. You're going out the window.
Yeah, let me just. I've got a load of all my facts and figures on different worksheets and stuff. I'm just trying to move them all out the way.
No
there we go. That's it. Just so if I need anything, I've got everything there to hand.
You're almost prepared, Steve.
Almost.
This is quite professional, this.
I try, Bruce. No.
Mate, are you all right if we just crack on?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
right,
I was
lovely.
reading through some of the comments and stuff, and I didn't answer them. I thought I'd leave that till today. Yeah. So, yeah, you just fire at me what you like, ask me what you like, and I will answer to the best of my abilities, sir.
Okay, mate. Well, I mean, there's loads of questions for us to get through. So, the sooner we start, the better, I think.
Yeah, folks, let me just give my glasses a quick clean.
No worries.
Say, my vision at 200 meters is spot on, but here it's really bad.
Yes, officer. Folks, welcome back to Bru Time. You're Steve Manning.
Good evening.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much. Good to be on.
Excellent. Now, Steve, normally I split the podcast into like two bits, really. So the first sort of half hour is us finding out about the guest. We delve into a little bit about their back history and everything that's got them to wherever they are now in life. And then we tackle questions. There are so many questions. I think we need to crack on with the questions.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we're going to be here all night. But I think we need to hear a little bit about you first. So, who are you? What's your name? What do you do?
Okay, Silla. Anyway, my name's Steve Manning. I run Advanced Riding Town. Oh,
cheers, by the way. Yeah. Cheers. Sorry, cup of splash. Sorry to interrupt, folks, but just a quick shout out for this week's sponsors, who are, as always, Ultimate Add-ons. Ultimate Add-ons have been back in the podcast for the last few years, and I've been using their products since probably around about 2017, 2018. They specialise in phone holders, so both the mounts that attach to your bike and the protective cases that your phone goes in. Now, these cases are shockproof, they're dustproof, they're the perfect things to put your phone in whilst you're on the bike, and even if you do have a mishap, your phone is nicely protected inside that case. You can still use the phone, you can still use the touchscreen, you can even still use the cameras. They do a wide selection of mounts. I use the ratchet strap, which is actually in their cycle section, but you can pick any one you like for your particular bike or a generic one. It's up to you. Ultimate Add-ons are also doing a number of other accessories, things like action camera mounts. They're also now doing heated grips. They do things like a balaclava, USB, USB-C, power adapters, lots of different things. Head to their website, check out the products, and if you use the code TeapotOne with the number 10, TeapotOne10, then you will get 10% off. A massive thanks to Ultimate Add-ons for all your support. And a massive shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreons, patreon.com/TeapotOne. I literally could not do this full time without your support, folks. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for going that extra mile with your support. You're also the backbone of the Bru Time podcast with all your questions. So keep them coming and we'll go from strength to strength.
I run Advanced Riding Techniques down in Crawley with Paul Searle from P&H Motorcycles. Who I must say is one of the most supportive business partners I've ever worked with. I haven't worked with that many, but yeah, he absolutely gets what we're trying to do. He's been in the game for 44, I think nearly 45 years now, from starting up. in his mum and dad's front garden, I believe, all those years ago, to one of the biggest multi-franchise dealers, in the south of England, if not the rest of the UK. And he absolutely supports what we do. So I sort of got into instructing a little bit. Well, I taught an ex-girlfriend how to ride, basically. Just taught her what I did on an old GPZ 305 belt drive thing that I had lying about. Yeah. And went for dinner with the parents in the evening, and her brother said to me, "How did you do that?" He said, "I've been trying to teach her to ride for the last 6 months, and it just never worked." And I'm like, "I just taught her what I did." And he actually said, "Have you ever thought about being an instructor?" And so this was about 96, 97. And at the time, I was couriering for a little bit. And I said, no. And so I started looking into it. And then I did all my training with CSM, Chivers School of Motoring, back in the day. Did my training, did a 2-week course at Wimbledon, and then was dropped in the deep end one Saturday by the manager, Mike, at the time. He said, "Right, okay, you're not doing CBTs today. Upstairs, there's 4 ladies. Go up there. They're all here for an assessment to see if they want to do the job a lot." And I pooed myself. Yeah. I'm like, I'm new to the job. I'm in there, but he trusted me to actually, help these ladies, get on. And three out of the 4 booked. The 4th one came back a month later. So yeah, that was really my introduction. And I was doing it, I suppose, a good couple of years for CSM. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. It's just that thing of, you get to do your passion. You get to ride bikes. Okay, you're out in all weathers and stuff. But yeah, and here we are a few years later, and I'm still doing it. I'm still riding in the rain, still teaching, driving the desk a lot of the time, as you'll appreciate. But yeah, that's how I got into being an instructor. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
And now, yeah, obviously, as you said, you've got ART, Advanced Riding Techniques, attached to P&H and Crawley there. Incidentally, who I bought my first ever motorcycle from back in the day. Yeah, I did, yeah.
All world.
Aye. And well, actually, you said you made me a cup of tea, didn't you, at P&H?
You'd not been long from your ride. You'd not long come back from your round the world ride. And I remember just rocking up one day. I can't remember. I'm thinking it was about the time of year we were getting ready to do one of the Ibiza bike trips. I don't know if it was an open day or something. And I remember you rocking up on your bike, and I just recognised you. And I was like, "Bruce, how you doing?" And it was a busy day. And I just, "Yeah, do you want a cup of tea?" And I think that was it. And we had a little bit of a chat. And obviously, I've been, following what you do online ever since. So,
awesome, man. Well, Thank you very much for the brew.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. So as well as running ART, when you contacted me about us having this chat, you mentioned this other thing that you have at the moment, this drive you've got to try and what was it called? It's the NMRT.
Yeah, National Motorcycle Rider Trainers. So it's nmrt.info. So in essence, we've had CBT for 35 years in January. Mm-hmm. And in all that time, training schools, ATBs, approved training bodies, for those who don't know, all right, we have never had independent representation. When I first got involved, I was a few years in, and there was a great body called the MRTA, the Motorcycle Rider Training Association. But even that was under an umbrella of the IMI, the Institute of the Motor Industry. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the better ones. And obviously we've had the MCITA under the motorcycle industry. There's various stakeholder groups. And this is where I think a lot of training schools are really feeling it now, because we've got all of these bodies, past, present, what's going on now, having a say in how training should be developed. Now, there's obviously scope for this. We like outside views, but surely if we're going to have a little bit of a rescheduling of how we do training and tests, you need to actively involve the people that do the training, same as any industry. We're the guys at the coalface. I've been sitting on a DVSA stakeholder group now a lot of years. And it's called the TTAG, the Training, Testing and Advisory Group. So it's industry professionals and me. And there's the same for cars, lorries, the PSVs, and also motorcycles. And they get involved with DSA at a meeting level, at a Nottingham level, if I can say that. That's where we used to do it. Now we do everything by Zoom and Teams. But there's also a new one called the Strategic Motorcycle Group. And there's a few bits going on with that, but none of them are truly representative of training schools as a broad body. None of them. And that's really, there's half a dozen of us from training schools, the length and the breadth of UK. All right, Scotland, Midlands, East London, West Country. And, the idea is that we're in our infancy. We're just starting to talk together to see what we can do. The issue we've always had as training schools, as, being independent, strong-willed motorcyclists, we're all very vocal.
Yeah.
So there's always been a lot of anecdotal evidence which chews up a massive amount of time at meetings that, people want to get their point across. Oh, this one time we had, and whilst that's good, we need actual evidence and facts and figures.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at doing now. What we want to do, we do what we do because we enjoy it. You're never going to be a rich man running a motorcycle training school. All right. And I say, to condense it, you've got all of these bodies claiming to represent or not represent. All right. And what we're saying is the training schools should have a bigger voice. We should have a bigger voice in this. Every time there's a news article, we first talked with Motorcycle News at their show back in February, and they'd just done a piece on the MCIA conference and about the changes to the motorcycle industry and training and testing as a whole. And it's like, hang on, we haven't had any involvement in this. Why are you talking about it? You don't do training. The motorcycle industry, as a broad stroke, you sell motorcycles. You don't do training. So that's what that's really where we're at the moment. It's just trying to get a voice together so that we can actually say, hang on, we've canvassed 100 of our members, and they're all in agreement that this would be the preferred way to do it. At the moment, DVSA do send out surveys sometimes, but as you know, with public consultations and everything, they're all the way they ask the questions are heavily weighted to get the answer that they actually want. And we're saying we think we can do better than that. We should be doing better than that. So that's what the NMRT is all about.
And I know you said it's early days, but how far do you think you are from establishing this?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that there's a lot of skepticism out there, a lot of cynicism. Sorry, there have been so many schemes over the last 30 years where outside interests have had their own interests at heart rather than those of the training school. So it's actually building up trust. So the way we envisage moving forward is membership of the NMRT. All right. If you're a training body, we want to include instructors at some stage, but we're not ready for that yet. We need to be talking with the business owners. All right. We're trying to keep the membership free. Okay. Now that's a big ask. How we do that, how we pay for the IT infrastructure, how we pay for marketing, how we actually get our voice forward. We've got a plan for all of these things, but we need the vocal ones out there, the ones that actually want to take on some of this challenge. We want them to come to us and say, yes, we want to help. We want to work with you. We want to make a better lot for ourselves. That's pretty much where we are. We've even looked at the possibility of setting it up not as a trade association, but maybe even a road safety charity, because then there may be grants available to us. But the whole point is no one's going to get rich out of this. No one's going to get £100,000 a year salaries. At some point, we may have to pay for some marketing. At some point, we may have to pay for some lobby work. Yeah. But no one's going to get rich out of this. That's the main message we're getting across. There's an awful lot of small businesses out there that are brilliant trainers, but they're not really minded to do, this side of the business, to promote what we do. And again, to simplify it, all of this nonsense, and I am going to use the word nonsense, that's bandied about the bike test is so hard, it's so complicated. It's not. How many lessons do you need? The one thing we say with people doing a CBT, as an example, and it is getting around 40%. Some weeks we get 40% of people taking a CBT that do not complete in one day.
The
All right? And that's
CBT.
massive. Yeah, I mean, when I started nearly 30 years ago, 95% of the people that walked through the door could already ride a bike. And now, because we've had this piece of paper for 35 years that says you can't ride unless you've got a piece of paper, people don't. So every year that goes by, our customers come to us with less and less skill, and and less confidence as well these days. And what we're saying is, CBT, it's not that it's not fit for purpose. It's just not suitable for a lot of our customers' needs these days. And it has been bandied about. We keep hearing the rumours that government might be minded to make CBT a compulsory 2-day course. Now, we're saying as an industry, that's a very dangerous thing to do. That could kill the motorcycling industry. That would stop 125s being sold for 2 or 3 years. The industry wouldn't be able to cope with that. And this is the motorcycle industry, not just the training. All right. What people need to know, CBT is already a 2-day course if you need it. Yeah. But we live in a commercial world. And because we live in a commercial world, everybody wants to do it in one day. Everyone only wants to take 1 day off work. Our busiest time is Saturdays, Sundays, and bank holidays. Trying to get people to do CBTs during a weekday for the smaller businesses is a really big ask. So, again, trying to keep it simple. What we're saying is, and this is the whole point of the NMRT, go on the website, read about what the training involves, which is essentially really simple, and then talk to your local training school. Ring them up, go and see them, have a conversation with them. The internet is an amazing place, but there's so much misinformation and nonsense on it that I truly believe is what's muddying the waters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right, I'd like to chat more about the NMRT and how people can help, but we'll do that towards the end, I think, once we've got through these questions, or if it comes up organically as we will run through the questions. Yeah. Okay then. Right, folks, we will head to the clan first off, which is patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Bradley Hulse. Good evening, chaps. Just recently done my CBT and theory test, so new to biking. I did the CBT on a moped and will be doing my first geared lesson in the coming weeks. Are there any tips to get used to clutch control, mainly with the car park training round the cones?
If he's actually physically got a bike to practice on, then that's quite an easy ask. If he hasn't got a bike to practice on, then how do you replicate using a clutch without using one? I mean, he's doing it the right way. He's got a CBT for a moped, and he's going to do a lesson on a geared bike before he goes to buy one or ride one, which is great. Yeah. Again, I've been privy to look at insurance industry figures over the years, and the figures that show that people that go from doing a CBT on an automatic to then jumping on a manual with no training, the accident rate is horrendous.
Yeah. And you're having to work everything, aren't you? You're working all 4 limbs as well as think, and that takes a bit of getting used to.
Yeah, so, a lot of it is, one of the things as well we see a lot is, and again, I totally get the reason why, a lot of parents don't let their kids ride push bikes on a public road because the public roads have become so busy and so dangerous. And whilst I absolutely get that, if you don't ride a push bike with absolute conviction, you are always going to struggle on a motorcycle, right? Because you need to develop your sense of balance. You need to develop, actually, I want to go over there. Let's look over there.
Yeah.
And I invite people all the time, from some of the advanced groups, if we can put it that way. And all we get is, no, I don't do CBT. I only do advanced. Okay, fine. That's like asking an electrician to rewire your house when you know he's never rewired a plug. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it is a lot bigger issue than people actually realise, I think. But people not riding push bikes doesn't help.
Yeah, definitely.
You need to be good. You need to be good on a push bike. But no, I mean, I applaud him for doing the lesson first. But I would say the main thing is relax. Listen to your instructor. Don't put yourself under pressure. All right. If you've got the opportunity to practice, start using that clutch. It's like a dimmer switch. It's not an on-off switch. It's a dimmer switch, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're just turning that up, making that back wheel a bit brighter, a little bit not so bright. You're just easing it in there. Once you get the hang of it, I mean, one of the qualifying questions I ask all the time when I'm teaching people or coaching people, if they're a car driver, I say to them, what's the first thing you do before you change gear? 99.9% of the time, everyone says, I put my foot on the clutch. Do you? They don't. They actually take their foot off the accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
But because they've learned to do it, it's become learned behavior. They're not actually thinking about it. And that's where you will get to if you take your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take your time, concentrate, and relax.
I think you mentioned something which for me is integral to riding a bike, whether you're tiptoeing your way around cones or whether you're flat out going around a beautiful sweeping bend. And that is look where you want to go. Because you don't look where you're going, look where you want to go, because the bike will go wherever you're looking at. So prime example of that is you're coming up to a corner and you think you're going too fast. So you're concentrating on the corner, you look at the corner, you look at the hazards,
fixation. You'll
go straight. That's where you're going to go. You need to lift the vision and look. So for the cones, Bradley, for the cones, just lift the vision and look where you want to go. But it's a difficult one with the cones, because if you're looking over there, you don't want to be heading there because you still got that cone to get round. So it's working out this coordination between your mind and all four limbs, really. Because with a geared bike, you're working the clutch, you're working the throttle. You might, I doubt you will, but you might have to work the gears, and you've got the rear brake. You've also got your dexterity. So if you're turning left, your clutch hand is suddenly from full extension, isn't it? If you're turning right, your throttle's now right out on full extension. So you've still got to maintain the control of the bike whilst you're steering it. But all of that won't work unless you're looking where you want to go. Absolutely, yeah. But what's the story with, in terms of rear brake then, for the early stages of the cone work for like A1, A2, that sort of stuff?
Early stages, I mean, it's one of those things, why don't you teach trail braking? Why don't... We try and keep it as simple as possible so that we're doing one thing at a time. We're using the accelerator, we're using the clutch, and that's controlling the speed. If we go too fast, then we bring in a little bit of rear brake just to take the edge off. But if you're trying to maintain momentum, the last thing you want to be doing is shutting the throttle. So there's an element there of using all three controls at the same time. I've seen some horror stories over the years where people are literally being taught to stand on the rear brake because that'll help you do your U-turn. It may well do, because the bike's going to sit upright. But you're not learning clutch control, are you?
No,
I've seen bikes over the years, using that much rear brake, burns out the clutch, the discs goes blue, the drums go oval, and you're damaging your bike. So yes, there's an element of flexibility in everything, but it's just gentle use of those three controls will help.
And we're not entering a moto gymkhana here, are we? It's not a time trial. It's get around the codes. That's it.
I mean, the other thing you can say, but Bradley, when you're looking at the cones, the tip I always say to people is, when you're doing your cone work, you don't look at the cones. You look at the gap in between the cones, because that's where you want to go. Do you play the game, long rides, counting down, the roads, the mileage on the road signs, doing a little bit of mental arithmetic in your head just to keep you alert sometimes is one of the things I do. But I also play the games with the cat size. Never, ever look at the cat size when you're coming off on a slip road. Because if you look at the cat's eye, boom, you've hit it, haven't you?
That's true. Yeah.
You look at the gap in between the cat's eyes, and then you have a nice smooth transition into the off slip. Or onto the motorway, whatever you're doing. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that about like giving your mind something to do when you're on a ride. To keep yourself alert, because you do get to that stage, don't you, where you become complacent. Is that the right word? You just get so used to riding a bike that it's your brain's not thinking about anything consciously anymore, is it?
That's when it becomes. I mean, we're talking quite a few years down the road for this to happen. It doesn't happen with new riders, not for a long way. They're still thinking about what they need to do next and the next corner and what's that red car doing and all sorts. So you're riding very much in the moment. I mean, if we talk mileages, I couldn't say exactly, but I know the total amount of miles I've done over the years is a lot. So I do on long journeys. I think I don't know. I think my longest journey was about just shy of 800 miles in one go. Obviously stopping for fuel,
Yeah.
And that was a little bit, okay, I need to be doing something here. I'm not looking for my sat nav. I know where the next petrol station is. It's a journey I've done lots of times before, but I know I can feel myself getting tired, but I've got a destination to be at. So I start doing, for me, it's a little bit of mental arithmetic. Right, okay, I've got 90 miles left. I'm doing 60 mile an hour. How long is it going to take me to get there?
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing. And if I'm on Europe, I don't often. Sometimes I'll change my speedo over to kilometers, but sometimes I'll just leave it in miles, and I try and work it out all the time.
Yeah.
Just especially if you're sat on a motorway or something, it's just to keep the brain active.
Yeah, absolutely. So
good. I'm glad I'm not mad. I'm glad someone else does that. That's good.
Both of us could be a bit.
Yeah. Cheers for that, Bradley. Best of luck with it, mate. You'll smash it, mate. I'm sure you will. I can see he basically goes on to say that he's got some roadcraft already under his belt from driving cars. So you've got the knowledge. All it's going to be is just reprogramming your brain to have that coordination to work, your hands independently and your feet.
Rather than your feet.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know any other way to prepare and practice for that other than getting on the bike and just do it. Yeah. But I imagine, a couple of hours on off the road, so to speak, going through cones, and I would imagine that you'll grab it. I would have thought.
He will. We'll get there.
Yeah, definitely. Two Bob Rockets. I did my CBT in 2021 at the age of 62. I ran around for a year on a KTM 125 Duke, nice bike, before passing my test last year. I just wish I'd done it years ago. It's fantastic. Anything that enhances or improves training is to be encouraged, so well done to Steve. So my question, what advice would Steve give to the older rider wanting to improve slow control, on a relatively heavy bike, an F900 XR? I was okay with the wee lighter KTM. Yeah. Okay, so older chaps struggling a little bit with a heavier bike and slow control. What advice?
It's one of those things, you need to keep it moving. You need to keep it moving. I think one of the things that we see quite a lot with people is a reluctance to hold the bike off of tick over. So you've got about 1,500, 1,800 RPM. And you've got to remember, motorcycle throttles are very, very sensitive. I think the F900's a fly-by-wire as well, is it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's so. So even with a fly-by-wire, they're even more sensitive sometimes than a cable-operated throttle. So it's just having a little bit of power. As soon as you stop those wheels spinning, she wants to fall over. Yeah, that's the way it works. So keep your revs up. Look where you want to go. But also, again, this is the push bike thing. It's learning to, especially if you're going, walking pace. If we're doing 4 or 5 mile an hour, you need to counterbalance. If the bike is leaning left, you need to get your butt cheek and push it in so you're actually counterbalancing the bike and shifting your body weight about slowly. As soon as you start throwing your body weight about, the bike's going to respond in kind. You want nice, small, gentle movements. But look where you want to be. Again, drop your shoulders and breathe, all right? Because you'll find yourself, you'll know this, everyone that's ever tried to do it and get frustrated, if all of a sudden you're gripping really hard on your handlebars, two things are happening. You can't steer the bike effectively, and you can't look where you're going. So that will add to it. That will aggravate the problem. So again, drop your shoulders, breathe, keep those revs busy, and look where you want to be.
Yeah. I remember in the Old Bill when we did for the bike course in the Old Bill, you have to do your slow speed slalom, full lock to full lock and all this sort of stuff. And with them, what they drilled into us was almost, we were doing it on RT, so it's a different engine to the XR. So with that boxer engine, you don't need the throttle. You can just, you can just take your hand off the throttle if you want. Yeah. So everything's by the clutch. But even if you do need some throttle, set your throttle. So you're just giving a little bit of throttle, and then you moderate everything off the clutch. That's how we were taught anyway. So obviously, the more you let the clutch out, the more drive is going to the engine. The more you bring that clutch in, the less drive is going to go to the engine. So you can just micro little movements of that clutch whilst you're keeping the throttle steady. And then if you're coordinated enough and you've got the skill there, just applying a little bit of rear brake here and there just to tighten up the turn if you need it. But it's all practice. There's not many people out there that it comes to like that, is there? It's practice. So if you can find yourself, an empty car park or an empty road, well, maybe not an empty road, just space somewhere where you can just,
you want at least 20 meters, maybe a little bit more, somewhere that you're not going to be worried about, oh, I'm going to run onto the grass or run into the curb or anything like that. Just somewhere where you know you've got enough room. You know, I mean, on full lock, you probably get it round in about, what, 7 meter circle.
Yeah.
But you've got to be really good and really confident to do that.
Yeah.
So you don't want to push your limits before, you know, you're comfortable with keeping that bike moving at a slow speed.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, it's one of those, like you say, it's not something that people practice, but it's something that you need to practice if you feel that, you know, if you feel unsteady or unsafe on the bike, you just need to practice more.
Yeah, so, definitely. Bob, I think you're up in Scotland, pal. I think you're up near Glasgow, that sort of way. I'm not sure what the Scottish Fire Service are doing, but I know down here in England, where I am in Kent Fire Brigade, they do. They're like rider awareness days that they do, or biker down type days that they do at brands. So the Scottish Fire Service might be doing it up there, I would imagine. And part of that day is slow speed control, where they will, you know, they'll give you that option.
Again, you know, there are some really good. I know we touched earlier on, you know, on some of the advanced groups out there. You know, go and talk to your local advanced group. Go and talk to your local rider training school. You know, this is, I think, a lot of schools get, you know, disadvantaged by. There's so many other schemes out there run, you know, by road safety charities that get a lot of grants. They get a lot of money every year in grants. Okay. But all of their work, they're all volunteers. They're all really well-meaning volunteer amateurs, all right, in all these advanced groups around the country. The well-run ones out there will have slow control days, but you've got to join the club first, as it were. Yeah. All right. A lot of them don't. I mean, if you can sometimes just turn up for an assessment, you know, but go and talk to your local training school. If they've got an instructor that's not doing anything for a couple of hours in the morning, well, you know, while he's waiting for someone on test or something, they might be prepared to go around the block with you and just see what you're doing. You know, meet him in the Tesco's car park. Shouldn't say that, but yeah, we don't use Tesco's. We don't use Tesco's car parks.
Flash your headlights or your interior light. See what happens.
Yeah. Private car parks.
So I'm told.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best of luck with that, Bob. I'm sure you'll do fine, mate. Just it's all about practice and getting confidence, mate. Andy, evening both. Hope you're well. Short question, but suspect it will require a longer answer. Why is it that most bikers are willing to invest thousands of pounds in machinery, but reluctant to invest in the skills or knowledge to improve themselves in using it? Should the manufacturers be required to either support further training or offer discount if a rider has a recognised qualification? Oh, sheesh.
Okay. I mean, essentially, most of that happens already, but unfortunately, people are, again, very cynical about it. If you go and do an ERS day, you know, with a professional, a day's training, you're probably looking at, you know, up to a couple of £100 for a day's training. All right. If you're like me, my insurance, all right, has only just gone over a couple of £100 a year.
Yeah.
All right. For me to get 10% off that, I'm never going to get anywhere near the money back I spend on an advanced training course to make me a safer rider off my insurance. So the whole question of, you know, I should get cheaper insurance if I've done an advanced training course. Yeah, you should. But I mean, when the ERS was first introduced, we got told, oh, you're going to get up to 17.5% discount. That's the maximum we can offer anyone. I don't know anyone that's ever got more than 10% off their insurance from doing ERS.
Yeah.
You know,
what is ERS? Sorry.
ERS is the Enhanced Rider Scheme. So you've got the IAM, the Institute of Advanced Motorists. You've got ROSPA, the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents, or RODAR, as their car and bike-based groups are. You've also got the BMF. They do one called Blue Ribbon. But all of those are done by volunteers. All right. A few around the country will have a professional riding qualification. Most of them are peer-led groups. The ERS is the only one where you have to be registered, qualified, and insured as a professional to do training. Yeah. If I want to get really anarchy, there's a little piece of legislation called the Road Safety Act 2006. That's how long it's been around. And basically what that piece of legislation would do, it would outlaw any training that takes place on a public road you would not be able to charge any money for it unless you were a professional and qualified. So if they brought that piece of legislation in, that would wipe out the majority of the advanced riding groups out there because they're not qualified professionals. And I'm not taking anything away from them. But that's it, again, there's always, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, they say. That's why that little piece of legislation is still sitting there on the books, not been turned on.
Mm-hmm. And we're also sponsored by the Influencer Store. Now, I've got some blurb to read out for them. The Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea and a design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Now, all my current merch over at TeapotOne.com, that is all handled by Roger and Charlotte and their family over at the Influencer Store. So thank you for all your support. And lastly, a big shout out to all of you who are either watching a podcast or listening just now on your platform of choice. If you can share with your mates, tell people about the podcast and help spread the word, that really does help. And if you're listening on things like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you can follow and leave a review or rating, 5-star is preferable, of course, then that would be absolutely fan-dabby-dozy. All right, folks, let's get back to the podcast.
The manufacturers do. I mean, Honda, if you do your training with a Honda approved training school, okay, you'll get up to £500 off the price of a brand new Honda, as long as it's over 125cc.
Yeah,
but and that's if you do your test now, next year, whenever, as long as Honda keep the offer running. So there are schemes out there. If you do it through KRTS, the Kawasaki Rider Training Scheme, I believe there's the option. It's not as much. I think it's around £100. But again, if you're doing it through KRTS and you're dealing with your local Kawasaki dealer, I would like to hope that they're going to do you deals on some of the other stuff, maybe a bit of a servicing package or clothing. And, I can't say too much about it because I'll end up getting shot. All the Kawasaki dealers will come at me going, hey, you're telling stuff, we're giving people stuff for free. No, I'm not. But it's, there is quite a lot out there already. But again, going back to the, they make the test really hard. There's a really easy answer to that. You've only got to look at the KSI figures. All right, they're killed and seriously injured. And it's there. We hate talking about it, but it's always there. It's a constant. It's with the bikes, with the cars, especially with the youngsters. And it's man versus speed limit. It doesn't matter how much training you give people. The ones that really need the training will never take it. The risk takers out there, they will never take it.
Very true.
So Bike Safe have that issue. The vast majority of people that do Bike Safe have a lovely time, but they're not the ones generally that the police are picking up from the side of the road.
No, it's very true. I see it time and time again. I am not God's gift to riding. I'm not saying that. People come out riding with me who are like instructors with the ROSPA and IAM and all this sort of stuff and talk an amazing game. And then you go out riding with them and I'm like, geez, sometimes I look and I think, what course have you done? Because the threat assessment, they're way too fast. The positioning's all over the shop sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes it's not IM and ROSPA. Sometimes it's just normal people, but they've been riding 30, 40 years. And it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate speed. It's incorrect positioning. And I think the threat assessment or maybe the assessment of our own abilities compared to what our actual, our perceived abilities when compared with your actual abilities, there can be a massive discrepancy. I've fallen victim to that. Definitely. I used to ride like an utter lunatic at times. Yeah. And I look back and just think, miracle I actually survived, and it wasn't high-speed crashes that actually, because I had a few of them, funnily enough. It wasn't high-speed stuff that slowed me down. It was slow-speed stuff when I was in, commuting in and out of London. Yes. Slow speed stuff at like 35, 36 mile an hour in a 30. I'm just going with traffic. I think I can react because I've always managed to react. And then someone pulls out in front of me and I can't react and stop in time that I thought I could. There you go.
I think this is part of the problem. We've all talked to people. Oh, yeah, no, I've been riding for years. It's never happened to me. There's the complacency creeping in again.
Yeah,
just because you've been filtering between two lanes of cars on a motorway at 60 mile an hour when they're all doing 30 and you've got away with it for 5 years, doesn't actually mean you're that good. It just means that you've got lucky.
Yeah.
You know, all it's got to do is someone throwing a fag out of a window, or there's a gap. Gaps equal traps. You know, there's loads of stuff out there. But I think that, you know, the man versus speed limit, person versus speed limit, I probably should say in this day and age. All right, I think that has a lot to do to it. You know, bikes are exciting. You know, same as a fast car, but bikes even more so. You're physically so much more involved riding a motorcycle than you are driving a car. A car you just sit in. You know, two wheels move. Was it 4 wheels move the body, 2 wheels move the soul?
Yeah,
something like that. And it's very true. You know, and again, I think, you know, an analogy when I say to people, you know, they get off and they have an amazing, oh yeah, they're slinging it about and they're heavy braking and they're overtaking and dipping in and out, and it feels fantastic. Inherently, that's the single most dangerous thing you can do on a motorcycle, is start throwing it about aggressively, because you destabilize that vehicle. You know, a nice gentle ride, still, you know, at a pace, you know, still keeping up with your mates, but take time, don't take chances. Yeah.
The thing is that sounds boring, because, you know, I've had people say that to me in the past, and I used to think, I'm a different rider to you. You know, like I obviously am a different rider to you, because I get my kicks from how I ride a bike. But I can put my hand up and say, as you just said, every single risk that you take and you're getting away with it, it ain't skill. You know, if it's skill, then you should be on a racetrack for starters. It's luck that you're getting away with it. And eventually that luck, you outride your luck and something happens. So, I mean, I still ride like a knob every now and then, but, you know, I'd say across the board, generally, I'm a lot slower and more reserved than I used to be, for sure. Have a moments. But
I mean, I get it. When I go out with my mates, you know, we don't ride, you know, we don't ride for pleasure as much as we used to. But I always get that, can you not go at the front? I don't want you at the back assessing what I'm. Listen, I'm not working today. I don't really mind how you ride. You ride your own ride. I'm just going to sit at the back and have a lovely time. You know, if you want me at the front, I'll go at the front. But, you know, and it's that whole thing, ride your own ride. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But right. So I think we've answered the question.
I forgot what the question was. Cheers, Andy. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, Andy.
Next one, Charlie Callard. Evening, gents. Hope you're both fitting well. All good. Thank you, Charlie. Hope you are too. Question for Steve. What's the best advice you can give for someone who's considering this as a profession? Also, what's your favourite bike to ride whilst training? So getting into instructing.
Getting into instructing now, we've filled the last space today. Actually, we, as ART, I used to shadow train a lot of people. So people would come in. I'm thinking of being right. Come along, come and do a few CBTs. Come and do a bit of maintenance. I probably wasted, you know, a good 12, 14 years of teaching people that way, only for them to get, you know, half a dozen visits in, and then they go, oh no, it's not for me. So what we do now is we run it like an inset day, and we get 10, 12 people in, and we run it like a CBT. So, you know, everybody does it differently, but it's going to your local training school. It's a bit like what we say when you're going, if you want to take a test or a CBT, go and talk to your local training school. See what their facilities are like. See what their bikes are like. See what their staff are like. Would I be comfortable working with these people? Do they fit me? I don't know what's going on here. Something's making noise. I'm just going to turn it all off. But, you know, you need to take your time. You need to find out exactly what you're letting yourself in for. Because some days you'll just think, what am I doing? I'm pulling every toolbox out of the box here, trying to get this person to learn, and it's not working. And you have to get to that point and go, they're not going to do it today. Maybe we can come back again tomorrow. You know, the hardest part for me still is, as an instructor, is telling people no. You know, it's we get it. You know, when we've got people, when we take people to test, we call it the examiner's a bastard syndrome. Because when you fail your test, because the examiner says, well, you know, you didn't do any lifesavers on it. Yeah, but I did. He failed. He didn't fail you. You failed because you didn't look. All right. If he passed you, he'd be your best mate, wouldn't he? Just because you failed, you know, and it's being able to deal with those emotions as well. As I said, it's not for everyone. You need to be passionate about motorcycles. You need to be able to pass on your passion. You need to be able to show people your skill, you know, and that's not to say that people that aren't skilled yet couldn't be an instructor or an examiner. All right. You need to up your game, show people, because, as an instructor, one of the first things I learned, you can never be seen to be giving people false or misleading information. Whatever you tell them, they've paid to be here. They're going to listen to you. So you need to make sure that everything you're doing with this guy, this girl in front of you is on point. Yeah. So being an instructor, say you need to really find it out. There's lots of different ways into it. There's companies around the country that will charge you £2,500 to train you. My first question will always be, great, is there a job at the end of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because invariably what happens a lot of time is people pay to do a training course and there is no job at the end of it. So then they go off and they set up their own rider training school, and they realize very quickly that if you're working out there on your own doing this, it's a really, really big ask. There's a lot more work. It's not just riding about on a motorcycle. It's cleaning the bikes at 6 o'clock at night. It's adjusting chains at 6:30.
Yeah, all the maintenance. Yeah,
all of the stuff that goes with it. Sanitizing the helmets. If you're going to offer a service, what level of service are you going to offer? Take your time. Choose your training school carefully. Invest in Gore-Tex. It's expensive, but there's nothing worse than riding with a soggy arse, is there?
Yeah, yeah. That's a lesson that took me a long time to not learn, but just accept. Pay the money for good quality kit, because it'll repay you 10 times over if you use the kit. If you're out there using, if you're out there riding in all weathers, spend the money and get good kit.
Yeah. Yeah. And buy a bigger wardrobe to put all the kit that you're going to end up buying in.
Charlie also says, what's your favourite bike to ride for training?
When I'm training. So I've had, when I was working for other training schools, when I first started, we had school bikes that you could use. So I've used everything from, I've even used 125s on CBT road rides. I think even one of the CBTs I did last year, one of my guys was off. So I jumped on a Honda CB 125 to teach two other guys on CB 125s on a road ride, because we're all doing the same speed. I don't need anything bigger. But for me, something light, something manageable. Honda DeVille, if you can still buy a good low mileage one, they're a great workhorse because they just go on forever. I'm currently using, what have I got? A 2015 Suzuki DL 650. Again, nice, light, nimble bike. People are under this assumption that, you've got to have a big bike to be an instructor. No, you don't. We're literally, what's the legal speed limit? 70 mile an hour. Why do you need a bike that does 150 mile an hour? You don't really. If I had my white, I have. I've got the best of both worlds. I've got an FJR 1300. It's in a few pieces at the moment, but that's my bike for pleasure. If I'm going to go out and do distance, I've got my DL 650, well, it's nice and light. I'll ride it in all weathers. Doesn't matter if it gets dirty. And I've got an old Honda road legal motocrosser that is almost finished now, that I've had for many years, that I use on days when I actually get a bit of time to myself. So. Yeah, but no, I think favourite one, probably the Honda DeVille.
Right.
Or maybe the XJ900, because it's shaft drive as well. See, shaft drive, fire and forget. No chains to adjust.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Right.
I was over in the States a couple of weeks ago on a mate's Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro. And obviously I ride the tractor. I've got the GS, and I've been riding GSs since like 2016 as my dailies. And I was about 5 days into the trip when I suddenly thought to myself, because I could feel the slackness coming on the throttle, and I was like, this has got a chain, isn't it? I was like, I haven't lubed the chain. I haven't done anything. So I had to go and find some chain lube and get that sorted. So in terms of for Charlie then, obviously they're the bikes that you like. They're your bikes. Is there any advice that you'd give Charlie in terms of picking a bike for instructing?
You're going to be doing a lot of mileage. If you do it full time, it's not unheard of for people to do 40, sometimes 50,000 miles a year. If you're doing it full time and you're doing a lot of work. If you're only going to be doing it part time, but ideally you want one second hand, nice and cheap, low as mileage as you can get, good condition. All right, very very bare bones. You need a top box. You need a top box because you need to carry spare radios, batteries for your radios. In the summer, you need to be able to carry a bottle of water for yourself and drinks for your students. You always need, dare I say it, gaffer tape and a few cable ties for when things go wrong. All right. So yeah, something that's not something you're familiar with. It's a little bit like going on your first CBT road ride. One of the things that we see. Okay, you're doing a CBT road ride. You're in the middle of, let's say, Nottingham. How well do you know Nottingham? Can you safely ride around a CBT circuit so that you know where you're going? It's a little bit like that. You need to know your bike as well. Is it going to put up with it? I mean, when one of mine broke down, I had an FJR 1000 RU, the X-Up, and I used that on a couple of CBT road rides, and I scalded myself silly in that. Because, I'm doing, second gear, third gear, if you're lucky, 30, 40 mile an hour for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And something like that is just not good.
Yeah. You want a light clutch for sure, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. light clutch, something that's economical as well. You don't want to be spending loads on fuel. It's something you're comfortable with, Charlie.
There you go, Charlie. And he also says, question for both, best meat for a roast dinner, beef, chicken, turkey, pork or lamb? Beef for me.
I'd have to go beef, yeah.
Yeah, I like a bit of roast beef. Cheers, Charlie. All the best, mate, in your instructing journey. Debbie Clegg. How you doing, Debbie? Hi, Bruce. Hi, Steve. I did my training and test a long time ago, 1990 something, way before the Mod 1 and 2 thing. Even CBTs were quite new then. I wonder, after so long riding, do I and others in the same time frame need to retrain to modern test standard? What's your view on this? Obviously, any safety skills are a good idea.
Well, I mean, the test itself, some people are going to disagree with me on this, hasn't actually changed that much in terms of core competencies. What a test is all about is looking at how well, how well you're skilled on the bike. Are you confident? Are you safe? A test for me is all about how you interact with the other traffic. So in terms of, it's a little bit like people always say, what's the point in doing a U-turn? What's the point in doing a figure of 8? These are all slow control exercises where it's really easy for us to assess. If I'm going to take someone out on a public road and they've had their license 2 years, 10 years, 50 years, the first thing I'm going to do is put them on a bike they're comfortable in. And I'm going to say, right, ride round there, change gear. Let's do a couple of, controlled stops. Make sure your braking's up to scratch. And then I'm going to say, just show me you can do a U-turn. Show me you can do a figure of 8. Because then I know I'm not going to get to the first junction and you're going to lose your balance and topple over. And that's what, those two exercises, the U-turn and the figure of 8, that's really what they're all about. They're a quick, easy way to ascertain someone's skill and confidence on a motorcycle. So I would say they're the things, how is are you stopping at every give way line when you don't need to? If it's a stop line, that's a different matter. But are you coming into roundabouts and especially open junctions, bell junctions, are you coming into those and stopping every time? Or are you progressively braking, right? Nice little bit of controlled braking, coming off the front, going on the back, doing your observations and keep the bike moving if it's safe to go, plan to go. We're looking to stop, but we're planning to go, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, Debbie, I never saw the need for any further training, to be honest. I was lucky I got it anyway through the police. But when I had the big accident where I got wiped out at slow speed, it really started making me think, is there something I could have done there to better prepare myself for that sort of situation? I already thought I had a good skill level and good observations, plainly not good enough. So that then made me go and look for further training. So I started doing stuff with the IAM approached me anyway to do stuff through the channel, but then I had Rapid contacted me about doing stuff, so I started doing and some track days, California Superbike School, all that sort of stuff. So I as soon as I identified that, okay, maybe my level isn't where I thought it was and I could do with some more training, you just go and find it and go and do it, and I think if you're that way inclined, you're going to do the training. If somebody turns around and tells you that you need that, I'd say a lot of people out there won't take it, will they? Because it's
No.
a massive slap in the face for somebody to turn around and go, you could benefit from further training. You know what I mean? Like, it's certainly, to somebody like me, I would take, that would be like a question of my manliness, almost. You'd just be like, oh, who are you telling me that I need training? I'm the type of person that needs to realise I need it, and then I'll go and get it.
Yeah, I think that's very true for a lot of riders out there. There is, we're not going to, the ego or whatever, but there is
the ego. That's it. Yeah,
I'm riding a bike. It's, again, one of the things that we constantly face as a school, and I know we're not the only one. Why have I got to do 3 days training? Because I've just ridden for a 30-minute assessment and you didn't read a single road sign. You can ride a bike, but there's no way you're going to get through a test without me heckling you to death for 2 or 3 days, badgering you to read the road signs and then act accordingly. Because
that's the roadcraft package.
It's the roadcraft. The skills on the bike, they're easy to teach compared to actually getting people to look around them and look what's going on and act accordingly. The amount of people that end up, and sometimes it's nerves, but one of the things our local examiner team do down the south of England, we're turning left. That's left at the end of the road, and one of them, we're turning left at the next stop line. That's left at the next stop line. What do people do? They get to the end of the road and just turn left without stopping.
Oh, right.
They're just not in the zone. They're not, right, examiner's told me to turn left. I'm turning left. Hang on. He's told you, he's given you a clue. You're turning left at the next stop line. And you've gone. And, and this happens to people that are really good. Mm-hmm. So, it's there's no science. There's no magic wands you can wave. You just have to be in that zone. But as regards, refresher training, everyone should do some refresher training, whether it's on road, off road, do track days, do a little bit of green laning. They'll all add to your skills and confidence on the bike.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No. If you're inclined to seek that further training, Debbie, just go for it. Or if you think there's a need, just go for it. Just do it. Personally, I don't think that's something that, could they bring that in legislation that, after 20 years you need, or every 5 years, every 10 years you need to do?
So a few chief driving examiners ago, in my infancy doing industry work, I went to Brussels a few times and I sat in a few very high-level meetings at Whitehall. And I dared to ask the question of the minister, put my hand up, little me at the back of the room, and I said, can I just ask about road user education and road user re-education, please, Minister? And we'll get to that at the end of the meeting. So we got to the end of the meeting. The meeting was adjourned. I got pulled aside by the chief driving examiner at the time, and he said, Steve, brilliant. We love your passion, but don't stress too much about it. You will never see it in your lifetime. And I still question that today. We supposedly have some of the safest roads in Europe, if not the world, right? But the KSI figures are still way too high, and there's a lot of complacency around that. I truly believe we should be doing, at the very least, I don't know what's making that noise. At the very least, we should be doing some driver, rider, road user reassessment every 10 years. We all use the same bit of tarmac. What would be the issue with doing some assessment, not a retest, assessment every 10 years for every license you've got? It hasn't got to be a heavy, onerous test, does it? It's just got to be, okay, we're going for a drive for half an hour. Show me what you can do.
Yeah.
It really could be a lot more.
Yeah, we obviously we used to get that in the old bill. You'd have, is it every year or every 5 years? You'd have to do or every 3 years you'd have to do like a reassessment for your Blues and Twos qualification, or just your driving permit to drive the old bill cars or the bikes. But I've got to admit, if someone was to bring that out now in civvy life, that would really get my goat up. Having somebody tell me that would really get my goat up. I know the sense, but it would get my back up.
I think this is one of the reasons I don't know it to be true, but I think why we have this. You got to remember when you start looking at numbers. So if we just quickly throw some numbers in there, since 1998, because that's as far back as I've been able to go with DVSA figures, right, for the amount of tests we've done on average, 51,000 motorcycle tests in the UK since 1998. 51,000.
Is that it?
Last year, we did 1.7 million car tests.
Wow.
So when you look at those numbers, you go, there's no way they're going to start legislating against a potential 1.7 million voters, right? The 50,000 people taking a bike test, of which only 40,000 of them probably passed, all right? We're not worried about them. The numbers are too small. We're talking a government that's in charge, looking after millions, billions of people. Yeah. So when you're looking at numbers like that, but again, I think we're missing a trick now. I mean, the one thing that we see, especially in the last 10 years, the youngsters coming through now have a complete disconnect with what's going on in the world outside the car that they're in. Because they've been sitting in the back of a car for probably 10, 12 years now, watching DVDs, head down on a tablet. And I get that. But what we see, what that's translating to now, and I can't speak officially for the car instruction world, but it definitely in the bike instruction world, the amount of people that have zero highway code knowledge, zero awareness of what they're expected to do and how they're expected to behave on the road. And we can't cope with that, especially on a CBT, where we've only got them for 7 or 8 hours. We cannot cope with that. This is why, the fail to complete rate on CBTs is going up every year, because we're also dealing with that. And again, we've raised this at several stakeholder meetings. I think it's in Northern Ireland. There's actually a GCSE or the equivalent in road safety education. Okay, well, let's do some road safety education with the 15-year-olds in the UK. Oh, no, we can't overburden, the Department for Education. They're already far too busy with all their other subject matter. And it's like, hang on. So you've got pedestrians, cyclists, equestrians, mopeds, motorcyclists. There's 5 there. We're the vulnerable ones.
Yeah.
All right. Why are we not doing a road user theory test at 15 years old before anyone can even apply for a provisional license?
Yeah.
To me, it makes no sense. To not educate your people, especially the vulnerable, especially the youngsters. Give them the opportunity to learn. If they don't want to learn, then, is it a big deal not having a driving license? Well, yeah, it is if they don't want to drive. But again, we have heard the argument, but people use their driving license for other things. Why? Surely the government agency that's set up with looking after driving licenses should really only be concerned with people using their driving licenses for driving or riding, not using their driving license for ID. There's ID cards and all kinds of stuff that we can do. So that one's a bit of a mystery to me. But where were we again?
It's an interesting thing, because as you're talking there, the argument that a lot of people always bring up about the difference between riding here in the UK and especially riding in the continent, and you just need to cross the Channel Tunnel, the Channel, and get into France, and straight away you see how observant and accommodating drivers are, from cars through to the big heavies, big articulated trucks. They seem to be much more aware of motorbikes and cyclists, and the cars will literally mount the verge to let you by a lot of the time, won't they? And why is that? Is that because people get into biking in terms of their CBT, their equivalent CBT, at like 14 or even I think 12 years of age in some countries in Europe?
It used to. I think there's only a couple of them left in the EU now that actually you can drive in under 16. But again, the ministers have made a statement on that. They will never let anyone under the age of 16 use the road, use the roads on a powered vehicle. Well, hang on. What about all these, pedelecs and e-bikes and stuff like that? They're talking about raising the speed limit from 8 mile an hour to 15.5 mile an hour. On these, the ones where you don't even need to pedal. Yeah, an e-bike, you have to, legally, they have to pedal them. But the little ones like the scooters that you don't have to pedal, that have got the button, they're talking about almost, doubling the speed of those. But the accident rate's going through the roof. We're not doing any training. We're going to let people go faster. Because it's going to lead to less congestion. Well, surely motorbikes already do that. And we've got, quite a rigorous system. Some would say too rigorous. But, again, you've got to look at it who's going to come off worst in an accident?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I mean, we will undoubtedly, but
yeah,
to surely they must look at the European model and go, well, what are the figures? What are the figures in Europe compared to
yeah,
here in the UK in terms of? I mean, I would suggest that deaths are always going to be higher in the motorcycling community by its very nature. We haven't got a metal box round about us. We haven't got airbags round us. If you get hit by a vehicle or hit an object as a biker, it's not going to end particularly well, especially once you add speed and momentum and things to it. But in terms of just general accidents, is the accident rate as high in Europe with bikers versus everything else as it is in the UK? And if it's not, why is that? Is that because they've got greater awareness? And if they do, how have they got that? I would have thought, surely somebody in the UK government world, if that's their job to look at this, then where's the best situation for us to look at? And what are they doing that we're not doing? How can we learn?
Yeah.
Are they doing that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because obviously, not being part of Europe anymore, it's more. I mean, we could probably go to FEMA, someone like that. But it's again, what works for one isn't always going to work for the other.
True.
When they first trialed the two-part test, which was only ever going to be a temporary measure. The only reason it was a two-part, absolutely, yeah. I won't mention his name, but the CEO at the time said, "Yeah, we haven't built enough test centres. We're going to admit that we haven't built enough test centres. So to be able to cope with the demand of the lack of tests, if you as it were, what we're going to do, we're going to make it a two-part test till we can build enough test centres." And then we got 2 years down the line. We had the motorcycle test review in 2011. They reduced the speed. The accident rate went down a little bit on the test. And they went, "No, that's it, austerity now. We've got no money. We're not spending any more money on the motorcycle estate." So here we are, 10 years, 12 years later, and we've still got a two-part test. But when they first trialled that, it was exactly the same test from the countries right down the bottom of Europe to right at the very top of Europe. Now, even just the weather conditions alone and the hours of daylight would suggest that you cannot have the same test in all of those 28 member countries at the time. And, and that's why we ended up with little tweaks here and there, because it's keeping it flexible, isn't it? I think what we need to be looking at is the holistic approach of, why is the accident rate higher here? What can we do to try and reduce it? And it's just not enough of it going on, is there? We're just not looking at it holistically enough. So all we seem to be doing is getting more and more draconian with some of the laws out there. I mean, everyone talks about, the A1, the A2 and the A. Well, I was fortunate enough. I met one of the doctors, actually did some of the work on, I think, cognitive behavior. And it's the risk assessment part of an adult's brain is not fully developed until you're 24 years old on average. All right. So that's why anyone under 24 doesn't get access to a full powered machine until they can prove themselves. Yeah, well, I can get that. But again, why aren't we doing it for the car drivers?
Exactly. Why at 17 can you go and buy a blooming Lambo if you've got the money? Do you know what I mean? You might not be able to insure it, but
1.7 million reasons a year rather than 50,000 a year. 1.7 million reasons a year.
Exactly,
a lot more of these are voters. So I think government are never going to be minded to act on that because, if we legislate against these people, they're going to vote us out. So, yeah.
Put it that way, it makes sense, but it's enraging.
What we deal, in essence, I always hate to come across as negative and that, but we deal with what's in front of us.
Yeah, you've got to be realistic about this, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cheers for that, Debbie. Next one, John Powell. Hi, both. A question for Steve. As the father of two kids, a daughter with an A2 licence and a son looking to buy his first project moped to get ready for his 16th birthday, what is your opinion on the rigmarole of obtaining a licence for youngsters? Do you agree that the existing system encourages 17 and 18-year-olds to just have a day's CBT and to not bother taking training up to test standard?
Well, and again, this is back to what we touched on earlier. I've not said it to many people over the years, but I have said it, to parents of youngsters. And I'm not saying, this is right, little Johnny, right? I'm really sorry. There's no way I'm taking him out on the road. He's got no balance. He's got no skills. He really is almost as if he doesn't want to be here. You know, you get occasionally those, yeah, but he's got a bike waiting at home and all his mates, and he's going to be really embarrassed if he doesn't get his CBT today. And it's like, whoa. Do you want to pay for another day's training, or do you want to pay for a funeral? And I've said that twice in my career. I've had to say that, and it hurts me. But I'm going to be honest with people. If they're not safe, they're not safe. The whole point of the CBT, when it was introduced, as I said, when I started 35 years ago, CBT was introduced to give people the basic skills they needed to keep them safe. Now, again, government don't release figures, but we know in the first 10 years of CBT, the accident rate for learners came down massively. But why didn't they promote it? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. So we've got that, but obviously we've got a massive skills fade over the years. So what I would say to anyone that's thinking of putting their children or young relatives on bikes, make sure they're as safe as they can be. Yes, CBT, as I said, it's not a one-day course. It's one day if you're good enough, if you're safe enough.
Yeah.
But would you buy a car, book a car test, and do it all on the same day? You ask anyone that question, they'll say, no, I wouldn't. Well, why would you think you want to do it on a motorcycle, which is a lot more dangerous? That's the bit I don't understand. It's a money thing for a lot of people. Absolutely, it's a money thing. But how long do you want to live?
Yeah. What do you think about making the CBT compulsory? So if you want a driving license, you have to have, you've got to do a CBT.
Well, I think this is one of those things, isn't it? And again, one of the things I learned early on, you can't make people do something they don't want to do. I think there should be more. I mean, I know, I'm trying to remember his name now, campaigned for a long time just to make a small change in the driving test so that when you're in the car with your instructor on your test, now remember, we're looking left, we're looking right, what are we looking out for? And they want to hear the answer motorcycles. I don't think that's ever actually been brought into the test, but it's that whole thing back to, again, what we said earlier. We all use the same roads together. Surely we should all be educated, or trained the same way so that we are all looking out for each other. Again, difficult question because everyone's at a different level. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. The youngsters that just needs a CBT because he's got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to his shift at work. There's no public transport at that time. If he's in a city centre or in country lanes, he's still at risk from other road users.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, if you want a driving license, as in a car driving license, then you must do the CBT element, just so you have the perception of what it's like to be a motorcycle user, even if it's just on the 125, you have that half a day or a full day, whatever it is, input of boom, there you go. This just so it's in the mind, it's there, and you're like, oh, okay, I remember what that felt like to be on that thing. But not if you want your CBT, you wouldn't have to do your full driving. But then I suppose they'll say, well, if it's fit for the goose, it's fit for the gander kind of thing, wouldn't they?
You've got to look at some of the things they do. You probably know the one I'm talking about, where they get all the cyclists. It was a central London thing. And they get the cyclists and they sit them in the cab of the HGV.
Oh, right.
And they go, right, cycle around that HGV. And the cyclists in the cab go, I can't see them. Exactly. And you're cutting up the inside of these vehicles. The driver doesn't know you're there, if you're going up the left-hand side. So the HGV drivers learned from it, but the cyclists learned from it as well. But again, it's not for everyone. As I said, back to what we said earlier, why are we not doing a road user theory test so we all learn about each other, in a theoretical theatre before we actually get to the practicality of having to do it? Surely there's got to be more awareness there for people to want to do more training or to learn more about it. They need to be more empowered. They need to have that knowledge in the first place. And I truly believe that would be the way. I would go, I would say for a CBT, if I had my way, I'd say, right, you want to do a CBT? Show me your cycling proficiency. If you haven't done a cycling proficiency, what are you doing trying to learn to ride a motorcycle? If you've never been a vulnerable road user, how can you expect to know what it's like? You know, if you get someone that does a car test later in life, you know, got some money behind them, goes straight from, I'm going to show my age now, learning to drive in a mini metro, right? First car's a Range Rover.
Mm.
Never been on the road on a push bike, never ridden a motorcycle. How do they know? Like someone, you know, people that, you know, cut up horses, too close to horses, too close, too fast. They've never, you can guarantee those people have never ridden a horse on a public road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what we're talking about here, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is giving people the opportunity to be more aware. And that, I think, is an education thing at the end of the day, rather than, it's the theoretical side of it before we get into the practicalities of it.
Yeah.
So,
it's difficult, isn't it? Like when you start thinking about that, how many vulnerable users there are.
Yeah.
Geez, I mean, how do you give people the perception of being that vulnerable road user? Because you couldn't expect to put everybody on top of a horse or put everybody, mind you, in days of old, we all did ride push bikes, didn't we? You know, like most of us did cycling proficiency at school. So you've got an inkling as to, well, I did anyway, you know, like you've got an inkling as to what it's like to be on a push bike when a car comes flying by you and almost hits you with the wing mirror. You can remember all that. Yeah. But I suppose there's a lot of people that never have ridden a push bike on the road.
I mean, you know, the cynics out there are going to say, yeah, but how much is all this going to cost? Well, again, it's that thing. And this is one thing I know that we do suffer from. Every time there's a change of government, change of administration, most of the work we've done goes in the bin. Yeah. And it has to be started all over again from the very beginning. And it's almost, I'm not going to go mad, like the health service. You know, should the health service really be in the hands of the politicians? Should road safety really be in the hands of the politicians? You know, I'm not saying that it's the answer to it, but if it wasn't, if we had more continuity, would people be healthier? Would they be safer? Absolutely, they would. I'm pretty sure of that. Yeah, but I think we need another question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Politics has come up. Oh no.
Yeah. No, good luck. Good luck with your son and your daughter. But yeah, keep them safe. Give them as much training as you can. Obviously, CBT, it's not a one-day course unless they're safe enough. Hopefully, you're riding a bike as well. You'll take them out and you'll show them as well. Show them how good it is, how much fun it is.
Best of luck, John. And to your kids, all the best to you. Next one, David Browning. How you doing, David? Hi, Bruce. Question for Steve. As someone who embarked upon the motorcycle instructor rigmarole last year, I'd like his opinion on the whole instructor training situation, i.e. down training, the DVSA CBT assessment, which has something like a 70% failure rate, and the need to be trained and assessed as an instructor trainer, as well as the primary role to teach beginners. All of this before you can move on to the direct access and train to instruct on Mod 1 and Mod 2 tests. Thanks, David. Did you understand that, Steve?
Yeah. So in essence, what we're talking about, let me get my get there. So back in 1990, when all of this was introduced, CBT, as it were, all right, was introduced, but it was put into what they call primary legislation. So it's right at the top of the statute books, the law books in the UK. And what they did with that qualification, they said, right, when we qualify you, when you train and you're successful, not only will we give the training schools, remember, because the training schools, like the IM and Rossborough now, grew up from voluntary organisations. People will remember Star Rider. Yeah? Do you remember Star Rider? Do you have those?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, things like Star. So you'd go to your local council car park, you know, your pay and display in wherever high street, and you'd go for 10 weeks or 12 weeks for 3 or 4 hours on a Sunday morning, and all the old boys would come along and they would show you how to be safe on a bike. That's how motorcycling training started in its infancy. And then when they introduced CBT in 1990, we had to become professionals. So you have to do your down training, basically. When you down train with a training school. But when you qualify as a down trained CBT instructor, you can only teach CBTs.
Yeah.
Okay. And only for the school that you've qualified for. When you go, I'm going to use the term Cardington because that's what my brain remembers. So the National Driving Test Centre was up in Sandy in Bedfordshire, just next door to RAF Cardington, where they used to have the big blimps. And basically you go there for a 2-day course. It's a 2-day assessing course, normally with 3 other instructors, might be from your school or another school, and 1 supervising examiner from the agency. And they not pit you against each. Well, yeah, no, they do pit you against each other because, right, okay, Bruce, you're going to teach the group U-turns, and then the rest of the group is going to critique you on what you did right and what you did wrong, teaching them as U-turns.
Yeah.
So it's a twofold thing. You can go there, all right? Now, it all depends how well prepared you are. You can teach your U-turns perfectly, but you'll get somebody there that's got a different point of view that's going to disagree with you every step of the way. And you've got to remain level-headed and go, well, I know that to be safe, but I am going to take little bits of what you said away, and I'm going to learn from that because there's a few good points. If you pass, right, you will either fail completely and you lose your down train card. You might pass partly, but you'll get to keep your card so you can go back to your school and you can keep doing CBTs. Or if you're successful, all right, you then get to keep your card, but then you get a C at the end of it. So your CBT1 becomes a CBT1C. What that does in legislation, it means you've just started your career as a motorcycle instructor with relatively little knowledge, little skill, whatever. Now you are qualified to teach other people how to be bike instructors.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can instruct the instructors.
Yeah, that's where, but only in CBT. So that's how it started. That's where, when it was first designed, pre-1990, that was what was going to happen. And you've got to say back at the time, okay, I sort of get that because it's fairly simple thing to do, isn't it? Teaching someone how to be safe on a 125. Because as I said, 95% of the people coming through the door could already ride a bike. You just need to make them safer.
Yeah.
But that is still legislation. Once you then get your Cardington, you then go back to the driving test centre at some point, and then you do a 4-hour assessment, which basically then gets you your DAS ticket, your direct access ticket. All right. And what we've said for the last 15 years at least is that supervisor grade needs to be removed from the CBT and put after you've done your direct access.
Yeah.
Because it's that whole thing of, I'm all right to swear, shit in, shit out.
Yeah, true.
And it's, but because that part of it's in primary legislation, all we get told with successive governments, successive administrations, successive chief driving examiners, and it's not their fault, but it's in primary legislation. It's so expensive to change the law. It's so much time. There's so much else going on. We don't have the money. We don't have the time to change it. And it's one of the things that's really holding our industry back. If they are going to do a root and branch review, I would hope that would be one of the first things they actually do. Is you qualify as an instructor and you get qualified to teach most of it, like you do when you become an ADI, an approved driving instructor for a car. There's a little piece called a PDI, provisionally qualified provisional driving instructor. But again, you can only work for one school and you only get your license for 6 months at a time. So a down-trained instructor is similar, you have to be assessed on a very regular basis until you've actually got your qualification. Once you've got your CBT1C or your CBT1D, then you only get your standards check every 4 years. But all the time you're down trained, you need that for 1 year. But yeah, so I get where it is. So it's something at the time was probably okay, but now that's the bit for me that really, really needs updating. You've got people that are new to the industry that are just qualified. All right, now we're going to get you to teach our new instructors how to be instructors.
Seems wrong. Yeah, absolutely.
It's it does, but unfortunately that's the way it is. Its earpieces are really bad.
Keeps coming out. Can you hear me okay there?
I can hear you.
Lovely.
Okay, yeah, that's better.
Right, cheers for that question, David. Next one, Rebecca Christie. How you doing, Rebecca?
Hi, Rebecca.
Steve, have you had more women coming for training these last 10 years? When I did my CBT and DAS course 17 years ago, I was very much in the minority. My instructor was a bit of a knob, as he actually said, women like you shouldn't be riding motorcycles. Your brains are too full to learn new skills. Sorry, Rebecca. That wasn't the point that I very nearly knocked him out. He got worse. Okay, so are you seeing more women coming through?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the numbers are showing that. And again, whoever you are, whatever color you are, whatever race you are, whatever gender you are, it really doesn't matter. Do you want to come and ride a motorcycle? We will teach you. We treat everyone as an equal, but we'll train you as an individual. You know, that's one of our taglines. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of hang up from stuff. I mean, I'm still shocked and horrified sometimes at some of the stuff I used to see when I started nearly 30 years ago. I still see it now. And a lot of that is from the previous question. You've got poor quality instructors with a little bit of ego now teaching new instructors. And behavior begets behavior, doesn't it? We all know that. And that's not specific just to our industry. You know, there's a lot of industries out there that suffer from that. So yeah, we could do better. We could do better. I mean, one of the things where we've scored as a training school, back in 2007, our fail to complete rate on CBTs went up to 36%. And I went, whoa, this is just not healthy. You know, our customers are not getting the benefit. If you look at any motorcycle training school online, all right, and you look at their negative reviews, you will pretty much find 100% of their negative reviews are from people of all ages, genders, sexes, whatever, all right, moaning about the fact that they didn't complete their CBT because they weren't given enough time, they weren't taught. And, you know, and that is indicative of the way the CBT is now. So what we started doing one-to-one lessons back in 2007. And I got in not a lot of trouble at the time, but it caused a lot of conversation. You're not allowed to do pre-CBT training. It's against the law. You shouldn't be doing it. And I just said, right, are you going to pay my rent and rates? Because if you're not going to pay my rent and rates, don't tell me what I can do on my training ground. So we started doing one-to-one lessons, and we've learned so much from it. Now we do more people every year on one-to-one lessons than we do on CBTs, because our customers vote with their feet. Yeah. They tell us, this is how I want to learn. So again, back to that whole point of how many lessons you need to do. So that in itself, I think at the last time I did the figures when we were doing the MCIA stuff, I think it was something like 11% of the customers in the motorcycle world were female. Ours on the same year was 21% of our customers were female.
Wow.
Because we changed the way we trained. Yeah. And, you know, it just gives people the confidence to come and learn to ride a bike on a one-to-one basis before they jump in at the deep end on a CBT. A lot of people come along, they do a one-to-one lesson and they go, no, it's not for me, thanks. And then they've only wasted an hour and a half or a couple of hours of their day rather than a whole day of misery being potentially, you know, you could be shouted at, you could be abused. I've had instructors I've had to get rid of, you know. I had one guy and, you know, I said to him on multiple occasions, I gave him every chance, if you wouldn't say it to your mother, do not say it to customers. Oh, yeah, but I have a laugh with my mum all the time. Right, stop. If you wouldn't say it to a 2-year-old, don't say it to customers. That's how bad it got. And he still did it. I won't say what he actually said to one customer for what was the final straw, but and he said it in front of a room full of people. I was absolutely horrified, right? And do you know the worst thing about it, Bruce? 7 years later, he was still an instructor. He'd been through every single training school in our local area. Finally, thankfully, he's gone now. He's out of the industry. But with that kind of attitude, I despair. It's just not on. You know, we want more bums on seats. That's what we're about. Bums on seats.
Absolutely. And like negativity is so much more powerful than positivity in terms of personal feedback. You know, like if one person says to you, oh, that restaurant was fantastic, well, you could have 5 people tell you that restaurant's fantastic. If one person that you know turns around and goes, I went there, it was shit, food was terrible, that's the one that sticks in your head, isn't it? It's like me with comments on YouTube. I could get 9 great comments. If I get one that's negative, it's the negative that you focus on. You know you shouldn't, but you do. It's just, Anyway, are you noticing more youngsters overall coming in, or are there more people coming into biking?
I mean, this year, not so much. This year, I mean, you know, up till 2019, you know, most of us were, you know, pretty healthy business-wise. And then obviously 2020 just completely changed the landscape. So we've spent the last couple of years building up from that. And here we are now in 2024. I think there's a lot going on in the world at the moment that's denting people's confidence. Mainly, I think it's the weather. It's the wettest, warmest year on record in the UK, apparently. So that's having a big knock-on effect. But we're still getting a huge variety of people from 16 years of age. We actually taught a gentleman last year who was 71. Bless him.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
he didn't start learning until he was 70.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we had to get an exception on our insurance to be able to insure him, because they went, no, 70 years old, we're not doing any more. So we got an exception on it. We got him through, and he passed, and he's still riding. You know, and it's, I don't know, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's if you didn't have a clue what a motorcycle was, you'd never seen one, you'd never heard it, but then you went along one day and you sat on one, and or you went on the back of one. Are you going to like it? Are you not going to like it? I really, I can't decide which camp I'd want to put people in. It's something you need to experience to find out if you're going to enjoy it or not, aren't you?
Yeah. I get people contacting me all the time who have never ridden, and they're just like, I've watched your vids, watched other people's vids on YouTube, and I think I want to give it a go, but how do I start? Where do I go? And I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. And I always say that to people, is that up until I booked my DAS. So obviously to do the DAS, you have to do your CBT. So I didn't know that. I didn't know I had to do a CBT first. I just Googled, how do you get a bike license? DAS, right? Boom, I'll have that. Yeah. So until I turned up on that first day to do the CBT, I hadn't sat on a motorbike. I've got a vague memory of being about 4 or 5 years of age, and one of my dad's mates coming home from being offshore, and he had a big blue Suzuki. It must have been a Bandit looking back. Yeah. And he plonked me on the tank and sort of walked me around the house on it. That's the only time I'd been on a motorbike, but it had stuck in my mind since then. So the first time I actually sat on a motorcycle myself was CBT, but it instantly grabbed me. The second I got out on the road, it properly grabbed me, and it was just like, I need to do this. This I have to do. So I always say that to people as well, in that you won't know till you do it. So just go for it and try it.
Yeah,
just go for it.
And this is the whole point of a single portal, where you said earlier, with about there's so much negativity on the internet, and people, I need to just go and talk to your training school, nmrt.info. Find my local training school. You'll probably find there's half a dozen or so in your area. All right, go and find them, talk to them, see what they offer. I mean, you talk when I first started, I had my maternal grandfather, Granddad George. He had some experience with bikes from during the war, and I remember him telling me stories that and at the time I'm thinking, whoa, of axle grease around the socks to stop the water running down inside your boots. And I'm thinking, and I was 7, 8, 9 years old listening to this, thinking, whoa. But then watching the telly, watching World of Sport, watching people like Court Ballington on the Kawasaki's, Barry Sheen and stuff, and then when we moved to Banstead from Erith, my dad come home. We lived next door to an old Polish couple, and he come home one day stinking drunk, pushing this Pooch Maxi, and I was about 10, and he's pushed it in. He's put it in the garden. He's trying to explain to my mum, this is going to save us money. I'm going to use this when I go to the office. I'm going to write, and of course it went in the shed. And it never came out again.
Never came out. Yeah.
And I being a sneaky little bastard when I was young, and not always being an angel, I thought, I'm going to have a go on that. So I literally, in the shed, mum was busy, 3 younger brothers and sisters, and I got it out, pushed it down the side of the house, and luckily, where we lived, I had 280 acres of woodland. Pushed it up the dirt track into the woods, pedalled it, pulled the decompressor, off she went. I was riding through the woods. This was the tail end of summer 1978. All right. And I probably spent at least a couple of days a week. I wouldn't take it out when it was wet, because then I thought, if I get it dirty, they're going to know I've driven it. But the very first time I got on that bike and I pulled back on that throttle and I went up this hill and it's bouncing and shaking, a Pooch Maxi 50cc, what are they, 2 horsepower? To me, that was the fastest thing on the planet. And from that day on, it was all, obviously, push bikes, but for me, it was all motorbikes and cars from that point. That's what made me a petrol head.
Awesome. So awesome. Rebecca's got another question for you both. What's been the scariest situation you've found yourselves in on a motorcycle?
Scariest? Oh, I don't know. For me, I don't think I've been in a scary riding my bike. I've been wet, I've been cold, I've had frozen fingers and toes and stuff. But the scariest situation I've been in personally, we did Destination Ibiza for 9 or 10 years, and the very last year was 2016. One of my best mates was on the ride. He'd done a couple of the rides with us, very accomplished rider, had his new Multistrada, just made a stupid mistake on a 30-mile-an-hour corner, up, down, head. Your arrow in the back, is that a Tourer style? Tourer
Shoei.
So yeah,
yeah.
so basically that curve bit there, where he wears glasses, not too graphic. He rides with a little bit of a gap. He went up, down. That hit the top of the visor, the top of the fairing, and it went in and it cut him from here to here.
Oh, geez.
A very serious injury. And at the time, it was like we dealt with it. We're in the middle of, we're about 50 miles outside Zaragoza. My level of first aid training is, first bike on scene. I have to do my remote first aid at work, if you're out here and whatever. And we were waiting about 35 minutes for an ambulance. And because it was my mate, I didn't think, I just dealt with it. But it got to that stage of, if I need to do CPR, how can I do it? Because I don't want to take his helmet off because he's got all this damage. Yeah. So that's probably the scariest thing I've ever had on a motorcycle. But actually riding them, perversely, I like scaring myself on a bike, especially when I ride off-road, not on a public road, but that's why I've got this old motocrosser that I ride. Try to ride when it's not in bits and I've got the time.
It's interesting you say that it's the scariest moment for you involved somebody else, because before you said that, that was my answer. I had a mate come off again in Portugal. I had a mate come off high speed, and he literally, what we were saying about, you go where you look. Well, he looked at the hazard, whereas the bend went round to the right, so he went straight on, and he basically head started Portugal at a real heavy speed. And I was leading the group. When everyone's behind you, and then all of a sudden they're not. I had like one mate behind me, and we slowed to like a crawling pace, and nobody else came. And then there's no traffic either coming, and you're like, something's not right. So turning around and going back to retracing our steps, and we found the scene. And you know what it's like when a bike has a big accident, it's like a bomb's going off in it. There's just carnage everywhere. And then we just saw him like lying in the gutter outside of the road with mates who were all old Bill, so used to dealing with this sort of stuff. And some of them were like ashen faced. And I was like, oh my God, he's gone. But thankfully he hadn't. He was still with us, but it was a big off. And that's not a nice feeling. Having to phone his missus and, say, look, he is alive.
Same thing.
He's going to be in hospital for quite a while.
We had all of that as well. But you deal with it, don't you? You deal with it to the best of your abilities. But I think, that's definitely, one of the worst, one of the scariest things. I mean, I've dealt with it, at work, having you touch wood, not many at all, but people do silly things sometimes. I had a customer one time, and they literally fell over, and the gear lever, they just landed awkwardly, and the gear lever fell on top of their foot and broke a couple of, and crushed a couple of tendons in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
And this was 2 hours before their test.
Oh, geez.
And I went, are you okay? You okay? Straight in the gear, like, yeah. And it was a girl, actually. And I said, are you okay to carry on? Because I'm really concerned. No, I'm fine. I made her do her test with 2 broken tendons in her foot.
Jeez.
I didn't make her, but she passed. She passed, came outside, and she went, oh, I feel a bit giddy. I went, right, I'm getting you a taxi. You're not riding that bike back. And then she called me from the hospital later and said, I did my test with a broken foot, you bastard.
I've had people...
Yeah.
I've had people come away on tour with me, and they've had an accident on tour, and they've been like, no, I'm all right, I'm okay. I'm all right. One guy, his bike had to be recovered, but he was like, no, I'm fine. So he finished the tour the last day or two. He finished on the back of my bike. I just took him. Well, once he gets home and goes to hospital, he had a double fracture of his fib and tib, and I think he'd done his ribs and his wrist. But the guys for 2 days sat on the back of my bike.
That's how much. And I think this is the bit people don't understand that don't ride. That's how much we love riding motorcycles.
Yeah, no.
Nothing else matters. I'm having fun. I know it hurts, but I'm having fun.
Yeah, true.
And
True.
there is no logical explanation for that, is there?
Last question from Rebecca. For both of us, right foot down or left? Oh, here we go.
So again, it's a little bit like the anecdotal evidence. Oh, this one time, right. So you're on a bike, okay? You're coming up to a T junction on a slight hill. The camber is going away to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you sit there with your right foot up? You'd lean the bike, couldn't you? And you'd put your right foot down.
I would lean to the left.
Well, yeah, but this is what I'm saying. It's that whole safety position, Hendon shuffle.
Yeah.
What's around you? You know, what's the camber like? First of all,
exactly.
Are you comfortable? You've got to be, isn't it? You've got to be safe and secure on that bike. You've got to be absolutely firm in your knowledge that you know you're not going to fall off. You've not got a voice in your head going, oh, my instructor said I must always have my right foot up. Where's the flexibility?
Yeah, exactly. So, I remember in the old bill, in the Met, for the standard response bike course, when you came to a stop, you had to have the bike in neutral. You know, and whereas for me as a commuter in and out of London, when I'm at a red light, I've got it in first.
Yeah.
With the clutch in, looking ready to go, you know, because if someone comes firing up behind me, I'm going. I'm not going to just sit there. I'm going. But exactly. To pass that exam, you've got to be in neutral, left foot down, do the Hendon shuffle, every time. You know, there's what you're taught, and I understand the logic behind it. But then, as you said, I think it does depend on the circumstances every time.
What's around you, building that flexibility.
Yeah, and your own abilities and your own comfort levels. You know, if you're comfortable to put either foot down, then fine, just fine. Yeah. You're comfortable.
It's a little bit like, you know, let's go back to another a U-turn. When you do a U-turn on a test, you need to do safe observation before you move away, which is mirrors, blind spot check. You might check the pavement side as well. You might not. All right. And then if you move forward more than a bike length or a good length, you need to check again and then look up before you turn. What if you're that confident on a bike? You can go, check my mirrors, do the lifesaver, boom, turn immediately. Do you need to do a second lifesaver?
No, not if you've just done one.
No, because you've just done one, haven't you? It's that whole thing. It's task specific, isn't it? Yeah. I haven't used any more time from when I looked. I've turned immediately. I've completed the exercise. I don't need it. I've had people argue with me on that point. You need to do 2. I'm like, okay, fine, do 2 lifesavers, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. So where would be the benefit? Where's the perceived benefit? That's what I always think. Yeah.
Common sense approach over procedure.
Yeah. But, you know, as we said, there's a way to pass the test, and then there's actually how you do it once you've passed. Yeah. Just that, Rebecca. Next one, Tom Ireland. How you doing, Tom? Hey, Bruce and Steve. I passed my IAM test last year, and although my observers were knowledgeable gentlemen and helped me increase my road confidence and awareness, I found that some information conflicted with what I'd researched myself. Question. How do we increase the consistency across all training providers, for example, IAM, ROSPA, and independent companies, so that newer or less experienced riders can really up their game in terms of advanced riding? So, bringing continuity across the board in advanced riding.
If you're going to have continuity across the board, really, there's only really one way you can do that, and everybody has to do the same exam.
Yeah.
But then where's the flexibility?
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit like I said, we just said with the U-turn, you know, you'll go to, and other examiners out there, other instructors out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll go to a test centre and they want to see your lifesavers on a roundabout this way. You'll go to Z test centre and the examiner there wants to see it done a completely separate way because you're dealing with humans.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's that back to that whole thing of, is it safe? Do we all have to do it exactly the same way? What's the outcome? Surely it's outcome driven, not process driven.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit where the anecdotal evidence comes in. Oh, this one time we had, okay, I get that. But we if you get anecdotal evidence, you'll sit there and talk about it all day. What are you actually trying to achieve?
Yeah? I always find for me, for how I am, if I need to learn something, if I don't see the logic in what I'm being taught to do,
Yeah.
It's just not. I'm not. I'm going to fight against it. I don't know why, but I'm like that. If I think that's illogical and I don't see the reason behind it, I fight that. So I need somebody to teach me. This is why you're doing it, and then I'll be like, okay, right, I get that now. Right,
you're an activist more than the theorist, then. So there's four main types of people that like to learn. Do you enjoy learning it by practicing it, or do you enjoy learning it by just talking about it? Do you enjoy do you learn more about it by watching others do it? This is where you start to get into conscious, unconscious, and then unconscious, conscious. Coaching become, when you move on from basics, you're now talking about coaching rather than teaching, aren't you?
Yeah.
So one Olympic coach that teaches swimming will teach completely differently from another Olympic coach that teaches swimming. And we hear that, we hear and read about stuff like that in the news all the time. And I look at a lot of stuff like that and I go, why are you bothering? Why are you filling up newspapers or web pages with stuff like that? What's the outcome? What are you trying to achieve? If you're trying to say all the time, my way is better than your way, what does it achieve? Yeah. What's the outcome? What are you hoping to achieve at the end of it? And I suppose that's what we're looking at is what's safe. When do you make that decision on when something is safe or when is it not safe?
Yeah.
When are you going to have that squeaky bum moment? Do you leave it that long?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. You have to accommodate all the different types of me out there, don't you? Because everybody learns differently. Everyone learns differently. Yeah. And everybody teaches differently, like you said. So yeah. I always say that with people. People say to me, "Oh, I went along to my local IEM, my local ROSPA, blah 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 blah," but I just didn't get it. I just didn't feel comfortable. So I say to them, I'm not an IEM ROSPA club type person. I've done work with the IEM, I've done some stuff with ROSPA, but I'm not the type of person that would go along to a weekly club and do all that sort of stuff. But I do say to them, try a few different ones. Yeah, don't just write it off because of one experience. Because every club's different, people are different. You might find one that you just gel with.
Yeah, and I think again, this is where we lose out as an industry. If somebody comes into biking completely new to it, doesn't do a lot of research, just listens to people that don't train, listens to what other people may or may not have done. All right, they'll go somewhere that's not a good fit for them. They'll have a bad experience. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, then they never come back into our industry. Because as far as they're concerned, all motorcycle instructors are now idiots.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's what we said, isn't it? The internet's a great place. Oh, yeah, I'll do that course. Click, PayPal, Visa, boom, done. I paid for it. I've done it. Now I've turned up and I've not enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Talk to people first. No.
Yeah. Tom's got another question. One thought I had during IEM is that machine control should be one of the things to look at first to really take advantage of advanced rider training so that theory can be applied without thinking about the bike and what it's doing. It's not taught in any detail during the CBT or Mod 1-2 training, and I struggled with machine confidence during early IEM rides. I know I2I is one organisation that teaches this. Question: do you think more in-depth machine control should be taught from the very start, for example, CBTs?
I mean, I have to disagree on that slightly because that's the whole point of a CBT is teaching you machine control. But it is compulsory basic training. I2I is a fantastic course because it's thinking outside the box. One of the great things, I can't remember his name now. Did you remember the guy's name does I2I? One of the great things about it is he's got no plans, no scope. He doesn't want to turn it into a California superbike school or I have dozens of different centers and instructors. It's him. What you're paying is him and his core team to teach you stuff thinking outside the box. If I could get people in here, all right, if my insurance would put up with it, I'd get them riding side saddle. I'd get them riding standing on the seat. I'd get them riding sitting on the handlebars. But my insurance won't cover that. And when I tell people, right, I'm going to teach you to do it on your own bike, they'll say, sod off, I might drop it.
Yeah.
So again, it's that thing of how far do you want to go? How much do you want to learn? How much are you prepared to put into it? And it's just, again, it's not, you can't make people do something they don't want to do. If they just want to ride a bike, and they want to buy into, let's say, the Harley Davidson lifestyle, and they want to buy the bike, and they want to go on the club runs, they've got no interest in doing figure of eights and U-turns or making their slow control better. The fact that it might stop them dropping it might not even enter their head. They're not interested in that. They want to ride the bikes, go on the club runs, eat burgers, drink beer. I don't know, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, I think people view motorcyclists as we're all the same, and we're not. There's as many different motorcyclists as there are types of human being, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a few similarities, but like I say, I think it's just, people, they need to want to do more on a bike.
Yeah.
So, which is
there's a lot of people out there who have no interest whatsoever in learning slow speed control. People don't want to do it.
No,
I'm never going to use it. I've got no interest in it.
Yeah,
you're never going to teach people that, are you?
Yeah. Why do I need to do a U-turn? I'll just go to that roundabout and turn around. Yeah. I'll just go in the Sainsbury's car park and turn around. Yeah. No. Yeah, it means to an end, some of it.
Absolutely. Another question from Tom. If I wanted to start teaching, how would I start? And what do you think is a good amount of experience, for example, hours, in order to be recognised as an experienced rider? I'd imagine this would be quite variable. Some folk really take to it and some take much longer. So how do you, I think we covered this initially, didn't we? How do you get into the instructor process? Go
and talk to your local schools, see what they offer. The best way to learn is shadow training. So we don't charge people to train them as instructors. We have a very small one-off fee when we run these inset days, but basically that's paying for 3 of my staff members, right? And somebody to come in and cook us all lunch.
All right.
That's what that covers. But you're getting, experience from 50 years worth of people teaching others how to ride bikes.
Yeah.
And we go through the whole lot of what's expected of you as an instructor, what you can expect from us as a company, that you're going to be doing the work for, what your professional liability is, what your financial liability is, how much are you going to earn? So it is very much, on an individual. Every school is different. Go and talk to your local training school, find out what they offer. But, again, I know we've said it earlier, but I would encourage as many people as possible, don't let it hold you back. Don't think that you're going to be no good at it. The amount of experience that you've got, the more experience you have, the easier you will find this journey. If you've ridden as a youngster, if you've ridden bikes across fields, you haven't got to have ridden the length and breadth of Africa. You haven't got to have ridden around the world. You need to be comfortable riding in all weathers. You need to have fallen off dicking about in the snow, when you were a kid. Stuff like that. All of this stuff is character building, as we say. All right. But remember, you've got to be dealing with people that are coming into this with 0 experience. So when an issue arises, you need to be able to tell them something to make their situation better. You need to educate them. You need to make them laugh. Yeah, you need to engage and encourage people. That it's one of the things that annoys me is when MCN, and MCN is a great organization, by the way. All right. They do some fantastic stuff. I think people get very, very jaded with it. I've been reading MCN for 50 years. Well, you're going to see a lot of repetition in 50 years. But one of the things that annoys me, when they come out with these polls, 94% of MCN readers say the motorcycle test is too hard, it's too challenging. If they did, autocar readers, you can pretty much guarantee that 94% of autocar readers would say the motorcycle test is much too easy. They're all idiots.
Yeah.
When people have a bike license, I really don't get that. Oh, yeah, they've made it so hard. They've made it so difficult. Why don't you just tell people how much fun you have? Mm-hmm. If you want to be safer on a bike, and we know this, these are facts, the more people are on bikes every year, the safer we are, because there's more awareness.
Yeah. That's key, isn't it? That is the key.
It is absolutely key. The more of us there are, all right, and that shows in the accident stats, all right, the more people that do bike tests, the more people that do back to biking, the more people that do, ERS, not because they're having training, because there's more awareness, because one of their mates will go, oh yeah, do you know so-and-so rides a bike? I don't ride one, but yeah, I know several people that ride. So they're starting to look out for them now. It really is. If you ride a motorcycle out there, please, 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 just tell people how much fun you have on it. All right. Don't focus on the stuff that you might have had a bad experience. You might have found it difficult, but you've passed now.
Mm-hmm.
Give somebody else, the benefit of your positivity. Don't give them the negative. Yeah.
That's the whole point of my whole, the whole brand, the whole TeapotOne brand is what biking has done for me. It's what it's done for me in my life. It changed my life.
Yeah.
I want to show that to people that it's all out there for you. Just get on two wheels and go for it.
Well, hopefully. I'm looking at my clock. We've really been rattling on for 2 hours.
I know. We haven't finished questions yet either.
No, great. You can come in.
we got one more from the clan. So just that one, Tom. Next one, Dave the Sidecar Dog. How you doing, Dave? Dear Bearded One and Steve, what's the funniest moment you've had with a student out on the road? A random interaction with a wall, car, horse's bottom. You get the gist. Also, what's your favourite cheese?
Camembert. It's got to be a roasted camembert.
I see.
Thinking about it now, yeah.
Gosh.
This is what bike trips across Europe do for you.
Yeah, I'm a Stilton man. I like a bit of Stilton.
Stilton would be a good second. So
Stilton. Funniest moment instructing.
I'm working for Motorcycle City. I'm running the training centre at Paddock Wood. So I'm commuting in from Croydon every day. And I'm doing big mileage every day. Just to get to and from work, I'm doing 170 miles, and then we're going all the way to Sidcup. So at the time, I was doing insane mileage. I was having an amazing time. I was meeting some really nice people, interesting people, and I had a person. All right, I'm not going to say there. And they were having a few difficulties in engaging in what was going around them. So several times we were stopping and we're pointing out, right, you need to be looking, spatial awareness. We need to be looking at what's going on. What's that car doing at that roundabout? When you pull up at the side of the road, right, if you pull over too far, you're inviting people to pull up next to you. And after a couple of days, it really started to make a difference, right? So then we get to the day of the test. And I've got this person and another person. We pulled up, nice big wide road in Sidcup, pulled over to do, right, you're really good. Your U-turns are spot on. I don't want to jinx it. Just sit and have a breather. All right. I'm going to do couple of U-turns with this other person. And then, bearing in mind, this was at the front where, what's going on? What's aware? And they parked their bike in the middle of someone's driveway, got off, sat down in the middle of someone's driveway and got a book out of their little rucksack they had and started reading the book. And I just sat there and I thought, wow, what the fuck have I been talking about for the last 3 days? So I got them doing it on the bike. But, if someone was to come out the house, there would have been a bip, bip, get out the way kind of thing. And it's like, it really, really made me realize at the time, I think I've been instructing for about 6-7 years at that point, how different people out there and how they perceive what you tell them. But yeah, it was it was a bit of a chuckle moment. I think I was still chuckling about it driving home. So
there's a Scottish saying, and I'm sure it's the same in England and stuff. There's none as queer as folk.
Yeah.
Just you think you've sussed people out? No.
Yeah. No,
it can always prove to be more stupid.
Yeah. When I turned around and said, we were talking about spatial awareness and where you position yourself. I said, have you noticed in where you're sitting and what you're doing? What are you aware of? And she, oh yeah, I got.
But simple things, like if you have to stop in stationary traffic, it's like the amount of people that just stop right in front of a junction
because they don't know where they're going. I don't know where I'm going, so I'm just going to stop.
Yeah. Or they'll block someone's drive or something, or like the entrance in and out of business or something. You're like, surely common sense will just say, you're going to be here till the lights change. So why, for the sake of like 6 feet, just stop short and keep it clear. But people don't, do they? Anyway, never mind.
No, very strange.
Right, that's 2 hours we've been waffling on. Do you need a bathroom break or anything like that? There's a couple more questions over on Insta.
Carry on. Right, I need some new earplugs. These aren't as good as they were sold as.
Okay, right. We will pop across to Instagram and Facebook. Now, I haven't pre-read these questions, Steve, so as I'm reading them out, if we've already covered it, lovely job. We'll move on to the next one. So, first one, mototherapy Michio. Seeing the first pick, I was oh, sorry, that wasn't a question. That was just, they thought it was 44 teeth. King
Yeah,
Bespoke.
Yeah.
That picture, yeah. I haven't seen that. I'll have to go and watch that episode. King Bespoke Creations. Hi, Steve. As a driving instructor, I'm constantly battling rumours of licence changes, usually increased age limit. What do you think the chances are of bike licences becoming simpler to access? Well, I think we kind of covered that.
I think we've covered that earlier, but to surmise that, they're never going to make it easier. They're never going to make it simpler. The one thing we could do, and I've got figures for this, we've shown them the financial benefits. It needs to go back to a single event test. Straight away, there would be 20% more tests available every week across the length and breadth of the UK for people to take if it was back to a single event test. So I won't go too much into it because that'll be another hour. But yeah, oh,
I think
sorry. That one.
You're right.
Yeah, it's all gone. I'll call you back. I answered it instead of turning it off.
Where are you? Yeah. We'll not keep you too much longer, mate. Next one, Pez of the Big. Hi, Steve. Thanks for the training. My question is, have you ever lost your rag with a student? You must need a lot of patience for the job.
No, I can honestly say, hand on heart, I've never, ever lost my rag. I've come close to it with dealing with idiots in the office sometimes when they ring me up and they go, hello, mate. Yeah, no, I need to take my bike test. No, I don't need any training. I just want to use your bike and book me a test. Wow. And I normally say, being a bit belligerent, sorry, I don't understand the question. You've run a motorcycle training school, but you don't want any training. I don't know how I can help you, sir, madam. Yeah. And normally that creates either or I get called nasty names. And it's we don't do this for, okay, there's a fun element to it, but we have to pay for stuff.
Of course.
If you actually look at what we have to spend, as in, what actually comes back in the door, you're talking that. It's tiny. But no, honestly, I've never, ever lost my rag with anyone. I've had a few funny moments. I've had to be stern a couple of times, but I've had an awful lot of laughs. Lot of laughs. And that's what does it for me. So, no, hopefully that answers the question.
It's amazing, isn't it? People just don't associate the fact that this is a business. It's your job. It's your business. I get it with my tours. So I'll do a vid on one of my tours, and people will go, "Can you send me the GPX files for the route that you've done?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, if you pay to come on a tour, I will. No problem. You'll get it with the tour pack that's there." Or I do them with a chap called Simon Weir, who's he's the goat when it comes to motorcycle routes. And I say, well, you can go to his website and it's like £1 a route. So, you can buy them there. And people are just like, oh, there's no need to be like that. You've done it. Just send me the route. And you're like, well, for starters, Simon spent 30 or almost 40 years developing that worldwide knowledge of all these roads. And for me, it's a business. It's like, it's my job. But people just don't seem to realise that.
No, they don't. It's an odd thing, isn't it? But all kinds.
Anyway, Next one, BC Insta01. Hi both, hope you're well. Steve, I loved the video you did with 44 teeth. My question, have you had experience with learner riders who have ADHD? If so, are there things you need to take into consideration before training? You must see a lot of that these days.
We do. I mean, the anxiety that's out there, people being unsure of their own abilities sometimes. And this is where, as a training company, as ART, we do score, highly on that front because we teach people on an individual basis. So, no matter what your issues are, as long as they're not, serious, we can cope with them. We can help you on your journey. That's what we're here for. Again, come and talk to us. Go and talk to your local company. There shouldn't be anything, unless you're, prohibited medically from doing so. There shouldn't be anything that stops you riding a motorcycle, unless it's medical or physical. Yeah.
What would be your advice to somebody then who has like ADHD or some other form of I don't know what the correct term for it is, issue?
It's a little bit like, I think, when we talk about ADHD, it's a little bit when we talk about the autism. There's a spectrum.
Yes.
And I think along the way, we're all on the spectrum somewhere. We're on what we like to call the human spectrum. Some of us are very fortunate. Some of us are less fortunate. And it's how you deal with it. We had a youngster in, or it was last year, and he had about an hour and a half, 2 hour limit of what he was actually able to cope with. So we talked with his parents and we said, look, this is what we do commercially, and it's a day at a time. Okay, we're going to have to break his CBT up, and we're going to have to do it in chunks. But again, we're not a charity. We're not getting grants for this. So we can do it, but you're going to be paying a little bit more than you normally would. All right.
Yeah.
And, he actually came along and we got him from his initial hour and a half, because remember, when you do a CBT road ride, it's got to be that minimum 2 hours. Legally, it has to be 2 hours on the public road.
Yeah.
We got him comfortable with a 3 hour session. It took about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and he was coming to us for a lesson every week for 6 or 7 weeks. But by the end of it, all right, his parents were really grateful, and it was great to get the feedback because it made him independent. And his autism was the kind that stopped him engaging with people. It was limited time span. I'm not a medical professional, but again, you'll hear it said time and time again, you teach to what's in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is this person capable? So, again, like we said earlier, take your time, go and pick your training school. Don't just go on the internet and book. Go and talk to them. They might be sitting in a bike shop. They might not even have an office. You've got to remember, there's a lot of bike training companies out there. They don't have an office. They work from their home. So they might be able to answer their phone for an hour in the morning or an hour at lunchtime, and they might an hour after they finished. But they don't have an office, so you just need to be patient. Send them an email.
And like my reasoning there in the question was, as an instructor or as a school, would you rather people told you that they have one of these issues up front, just be upfront about it, or you find out? We
do actually ask. I mean, say it's part of our duty of care. We need to know what we're dealing with. So, if you've got corrective vision, if you need your glasses for actually driving to read a number plate, then you need glasses to drive or ride, or you need corrective vision. So we have to ask, are you on any prescription medication that's going to affect the way, is it going to make you drowsy? It's fine as long as we know what we're dealing with. If someone's got epilepsy, it's a bit like varying levels of diabetes, isn't it? Type 1, type 2. It's not as simple as just type 1, type 2. Some people can go for longer without medication. Some people go very short time without medication. So it's part of our duty of care. There are certain questions that, as a responsible training company, we will ask you when you ring us up or when you come in for a chat. So, best prepared and all, as they say, best prepared. No,
it's amazing when you start doing something as a business, the different things you have to think about. There's a thing, as you were talking there, something that just came straight to mind. I do tours, I do bike tours, and something I now have to ask in the booking form and get people to sign is that they actually have a driving license that allows them to ride a motorcycle. Yes. Because somebody came along on one of my tours and I only found out like 6 months later through somebody else saying, not even from that person, that they didn't actually have a driving license. They turned up on a bike, but they didn't have a driving license. And you're just like, why would you do that? Like, you're not insured. Why would you do that? So, it's all these stupid little things that you just think, no one will do that. Yeah, they will.
Yeah, they will. They'll find a way.
Oh, it's nuts, isn't it? The query spoke. Next one, Ryan Wells. I think we've already answered this. What are your thoughts on CBT structure? A day of riding a bike feels very short for riders to learn all they can. Well, obviously, you've mentioned it's a 2-day course.
If you need it. I say, if you've already got a car license and you're an experienced road user, hopefully you're going to need less time. But somebody that's never been on the road before will generally need more time. Especially if they're not very confident, with their machine skills. I mean, one of the things we do now, if we get somebody that is that bad, we've had 2 this year already, we will actually refuse them to come back for a CBT until they've taken and passed the motorcycle theory test. Yeah. And we've you can't do that. I'm sorry, but we are. Yeah. Because we've tried to take you on a road and you're doing an emergency stop next to a give way line because there's a car in it.
Yeah.
You're going to get seriously hurt doing stuff like that. And when you actually quiz them about it, they've got no knowledge. They're just nodding yes or no, and they're following the person in front. And it's shocking how much people try and pull the wool over your eyes sometimes. And that's one of the things you need to be able to spot that very early on.
Yeah. You're saying about CBTs. My wife went and did her CBT a few years ago now. And, my wife, she's been a driver since she was 17. She's a very good driver. I won't say that to her face, but she's a good driver, and she's a trained police response driver with the blues and twos and everything like that. She went to do her CBT, and it was confidence. She didn't even get out to go on the road because it freaked her out. And I never, my missus carries a gun for a living in the police. She's a confident person, but she just didn't have the confidence initially. She had to come back for the second day, and she passed it the second day.
I've had a couple of those over the years. They come back, and you think, come on, let's just go around the block. And if you don't like it, we'll come back. Not a problem. I promise you, I'm not lying. We'll go once round the block. We'll go left, 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 big block. If you don't like it, we'll come straight back. No, I don't want to do it. Okay, fine. We're not going to make people do something they don't want to do. So, Jim
Bob Adventures, again, I think having a quick skim read of that earlier, he says a lot of rumours going around, speaking of licence changes and making the licence routes a little tougher. What would you remove from the current test, and what would you like to add to ensure riders can be the most prepared for the crazy British roads? Okay.
What I would add everybody doing a road user theory test before they can even have a provisional licence. What I would remove, the two parts to the test itself, single event test. Not only it's so much more efficient, and it would be quicker and cheaper for everybody to get a bike license, because a lot of places, you can't get mod 1 and a mod 2 on the same day. A lot of test centres, you can't get a mod 1 and a mod 2 at the same test. So you have to go mod 1 somewhere and then a mod 2 somewhere else. Yeah. It's just bonkers. So
that's crazy, isn't it?
That would be the bit I would try and change. So, because if you can ride a motorcycle well, you can ride a motorcycle well. Yeah.
Okay, that's all the Instagram questions. There's just a couple more over on Facebook. Are you all right for time?
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So, Stuart Bowen. I'm going to be moving back to the UK from the USA in August this year. I'm a Brit, but I've lived in the US for 30 years. I've been riding a series of bikes in the US over the last 5 to 6 years, and I currently have a Tiger 900 GT Pro. I have a full car driving licence when I get back to the UK, but I am very confused about the tests and courses I need to take to get a full UK motorcycle licence. Coincidentally, we plan to move to Sussex, so I'm definitely going to contact ART for training. Any help in solving this licence puzzle would be greatly appreciated. So,
as soon as you're back in the UK, first thing I would do, go on to direct.gov, book yourself the motorcycle theory test. Obviously, do some research on it first. Even after the CBT, I still get people ring me up now and go, I don't need to do a theory test. You do. Mm-hmm. We've had CBT 35 years. I don't need to do a CBT. I've got grandfather right. No, you haven't. You haven't. You really haven't. All right. Oh, well, okay. Then try and book one without. You need your theory test and you need your basic training. Once you've got those, then you can book a motorcycle test in your name. And that's what we always do separately. We get the theory test done, we get the CBT run, CBT done, we see you ride, and then we book you the appropriate amount of lessons and a test after that. So it is a little bit of a two-header, but you've got to have a compulsory basic training certificate and you've got to have a theory test certificate number, or we cannot book you a motorcycle test in your name. Yeah. You might be able to put a deposit down on the course, but you definitely, if you fail, this is where, again, people going out there, right, I've paid for my bike course, my theory test's on Friday, I start my training course on Saturday, my tests are on Monday. If you fail your theory test on Friday, you've just lost all your money for your bike tests because you can't take them. Yeah, you have to have that theory test passed before you can book a bike test in your name. All right, which is, again, one of the reasons I say theory test before a provisional license, then we lose part of that problem, don't we? Mm-hmm. Then it would make it easier for every single youngster. And again, I'll expand a little bit. Where we said earlier, we've done on average 51,000 bike tests a year, right, since 1998. We're doing approximately 180, 190,000 CBTs every year, right? If every single person that did a CBT already had a theory test, because they have to have it, all right, the system would buckle. It would not be able to cope. this is the elephant in the room. All right. Well, obviously, we're nearly done now. Everyone's talking about all these changes and making it easier and getting more bums on seats. The bottleneck is the amount of tests that the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency can provide.
Right.
If we don't see a significant increase, like 10% a year for the next 5 years, we will not have any more people riding motorcycles than we do now. That's the elephant in the room. So all of these proposed changes and making it easier and making it harder, and we need to do that. No, what we need to do is get a cleaner way and a more efficient way of providing more motorcycle tests in the first place. Because without that, we're going nowhere as an industry.
So how do we do that? How do we get more tests?
We've got to come up with some imaginative and cost-effective ways that government will agree to, and safe ways. And again, this is, back to nmrt.info. This is where we need to work together as training schools. We need more power to our elbow. There are that I know I can contact, and I will be over the next couple of weeks. Not just me, us. Around 300 independent training schools in the UK. That's how many there are, in essence. You'll hear there's a few more than that, but there's they're telling us there's 450 training schools. All right, you can't tell me that out of those 450, over 150 of them don't have an email address. It's not possible in this day and age, is it?
Wow. Yeah.
There can't be 150 motorcycle training companies out there that don't use email. Some of them, in the Highlands and Islands, might not have 3G or broadband, but I'm pretty sure they all know what an email is.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we need to do is work together to actually get the solution so that we've got more tests available, or the flexibility for the agency to be able to deliver more tests before we do anything else. Otherwise, we're just chasing our tails.
Yeah. And people can go through all the training you like, but if they have to wait 6 months to do the test, people will just drop off, won't they? There'll be a massive amount of people who just don't bother going through with the test. So No. Interesting. I didn't think about that, actually. The bottleneck with the
nobody does.
Test.
Nobody does. You speak to a lot of the majority of training schools, and they will all tell you the same thing. So.
Cheers for that one, Stuart. So get yourself booked on your is it the road theory? Is that what it's called?
Motorcycle theory test.
Motorcycle theory test. Yeah. Get yourself booked on that ASAP when you're back in the UK, and drop Steve a line at ART.
Yeah, no problem.
Rob Theobald, hello to both of you. I love listening to these podcasts. Thanks very much, pal. But I have to ask, worst client you've had and silly mistakes people make during training or the test? Can you say the worst client? Bob Smith.
Really, I had to physically remove someone from a driving test waiting room once when the examiner told them that they'd failed. They lost a bit of temper, and he was a big guy. And
sorry about that.
Yeah, we get on great. We've got a really good relationship with the guys and guys and girls on the ground at the test centres. And I just saw this guy. I could see the steam coming out of his ears. The debrief wasn't going the way he thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
I knew that he'd failed. And he started to get a little bit pushy shoving. I just had to step in the middle and go, right, come on, you outside. We're going to go and have a drink, and we're going to have a cool down. I was a bit concerned at the time because he was a large guy. But then 5 minutes down the line, he was like, I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what come over me. And he then went to apologise to the examiner. So all's well that ends well. But that's probably about the worst. I've not really, again, it's like losing my temper. I've never lost my temper with anyone, you know. That's the thing with this job. It does land you in it, and you have to be able to deal with stuff like that. Yeah. So,
I get it. Is there a thing? I failed my first DAS. I failed my first test because I put my foot down on the U-turn. Literally, I'd done the U-turn and I just dabbed my foot. I just now I know all you do is put some power on and
drive out of it.
And drive out. And I forgot to do that, so I just dabbed my foot, and that was it. Failed. It's just is there like a common regular thing you see people either fail or drop marks on?
Not reading road signs.
Yeah,
that is the absolute constant. I'm dare I say it, we've had response drivers, paramedics, fire, everything come back. And so stop line then. Tell me about the stop line that you didn't stop at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's force of habit, isn't it?
And it's that whole thing of that's clear, I'm going, boom. So but the main thing is generally people reading road signs and reading the road. They don't, okay, it may well be your right of way at the roundabout, but when that HGV's barreling towards you at 45 mile an hour, all right, who's going to come off worst? You sacrifice your position for your safety, don't you? Safety first, position second. All right. But he was going. Doesn't matter. Stay away. You need to, one of the don't get involved in other people's stories. Ride your own ride.
Discretion's a better part of valor, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Especially if you're on a test.
Yeah. Last one. PJ McNaughty. What advice do you give with regards to using the front and rear brakes during braking? When I did my training, I was taught to use more rear brake than front. I've adjusted my braking style over the years of biking, utilising both. I was at one point going through my rear pads like no tomorrow. Wow. No one mentioned the rear brake to me until...
It's funny.
Track days.
I went to Australia. The second time I went, it was probably about 2002. And I was out there for 7-8 weeks, and I thought, busman's holiday. I'm going to go. It's a company. I think they were called Stay Upright. I think they're still going. And I had hired myself. It was like a DT 125, but it had a 185 engine in it. And I was fucking for about a week, and I'm riding around. This is Queensland somewhere. And riding around. So I'm going to go along to one of their training days. So I rang them up and I went, it's busman's holiday. I'm an instructor from the UK. Can I just come along and see what you do? Yeah, no problem, mate. Come along. And that's how they taught it. They weren't teaching it as an emergency stop. It was called progressive stop. But they were teaching people to use the rear brake first.
First?
Yeah. And I was like, and I asked the question of, it's not my place, it's not my country, it's, I'm like, but which is the most powerful brake on the bike?
Yeah.
And both of these guys turned around and went, it's the front. And I went, so why'd you get him to use the back brake first? And he went, because we don't want them grabbing it and having it washing out. So I think at the time they were probably about 10, 15 years behind us in terms of professional rider training. Because obviously they have a different system. They have P plates. You're allowed a 250 for the first thing. So there's probably, again, back to what we do as training, I can safely say that 95% of all of our accidents that could be avoided are misuse of the front brake. Honestly, because people, when they ride, I know I'm covering. No. If you're riding, covering your levers and you're a novice, you're new to this, what are you going to do when you panic?
Grab.
You're going to grab. You need to train yourself to use the brake. Okay, I'm coming into a situation, there's a junction. All right, I don't like the look of that car driver. Check the mirrors, roll off the throttle, cover the brake. Right, I'm away from that hazard now. Let's check the mirrors, get back on the throttle, and away we go. That's how we teach progressive braking.
Yeah.
Getting somebody to brake from a 60 mile an hour limit down to first gear T junction, and then let go of the front brake once they know they're in first gear to do that little bit of slow control and planning to stop but looking to go. That's an art form in itself. That takes a little bit of time to get smooth. So it's something. If somebody was presented to me and I said, right, I've got a problem with my braking, that's what I'd look at. I'd look at how and when they're using their brakes first. I need to assess what they're doing already before I can fault correct. 90% of our job is fault correction, isn't it? So trying to make people safer.
Well, Steve, we got through all the questions, mate. I was sceptical as to whether or not we get through all them because there's been a shed load, but it's been interesting. I've genuinely found that really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's good because I love talking about what I do. All my mates will tell you I'm really boring, unless I've had a bit to drink. I don't tend to do that so much these days. But I say thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope we've answered a lot of people's questions out there. And as I said, nmrt.info. If anyone's looking at riding a bike, go on there, find my local training school, contact them, talk to them, have a discussion about it. Might not be something you want to do now. Might be something you want to do in the summer. But, talk to us. That's what we're here for. We're governed by a driver and vehicle standards agency to carry out training. All right. We all hope to achieve the same thing. We want to get you riding a bike, passing a test, completing a CBT, having fun, but being safe. That's what we do. How we do it, we're all humans. We all do it slightly differently. So there's going to be a training school for everyone, almost as much as there's not going to be a training school for a lot of people. But do your research, go and talk to people.
Yeah. So, folks, that nmrt.info, there'll be a link down below. That is like UK wide. So that's not just for Steve's ART. That's UK wide.
Yeah, England, Scotland, Wales, all of the training schools that are in existence, ATBs, approved training bodies, you will find them all through that link.
Lovely. So if people are in the southeast of England and they want to go to your school, Steve, ART, Advanced Riding is it Advanced Riding
Advanced Riding Techniques is our name, but we call ourselves ART because it's a lot simpler. We like
so you're attached to P&H, which is right near Gatwick Airport. If people want to contact you, where do you go? Where do they go?
artmct.co.uk, or come in and see us at P&H Motorcycles. We're on the Manor Royal Industrial Estate. You can't miss us. We've got a subway one side and a cafe at the other end.
There you go. And P&H is a multi-franchise dealership, folks. Yeah. So there is lots of metal for you to go and
we've just
over.
taken on. We've got Nortons. We've got the MVs now. We've got almost a full MV range. We've got Husqvarnas. We've got KTM's. We've got Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki. We pretty much cater for all tastes. If you're into your motorcycles, come down and see us. There's plenty to look at. But yeah, come down, have a look.
Do you know, I've not been to P&H probably since you made me a cup of tea when I got back from the big trip. So I'm due a return visit.
Well, I'm teaching all weekend, but I am in the office for a couple of days next week, or whenever you want, just give us a shout, come down. I'll make you another cup of tea. And baby biscuits as well.
Oh, now you're talking. Folks, I'll leave all those links that we've just chatted about. They'll all be down below in the vid description, or if you listen to the podcast, have a look at the show notes. Make sure you check them out, give them a follow, give them a like, and share. Sharing, obviously, folks, on social media, sharing, whether you're sharing those links, whether you're sharing this podcast, vids, that is really powerful on social media. So you help us all out if you do that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Steve, really enjoyed chatting with you, mate. Thank you very much for taking the time this evening. Almost 3 hours. Done well.
What's your longest, or am I the longest now?
No, I had Mossy on here. You know Chris Moss, the journal? I think we were 7.5 hours. It went to like 1:30 in the morning, and I had to go, right, Chris, you're going to have to come back for a part 2. This is ridiculous.
Well, let's see where we go. Maybe I can come back in a year or so and let you know how the NMRT is getting on.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're more than welcome. More than welcome. Lovely job. Right, folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. Keep doing your thing. Get on out there whenever you can. Keep spreading the biking gospel to everybody you think might like it. And even those that you think don't. Just let them know. Tell them. Try it.
Enjoy yourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Look after those that you love. Get on out there whenever you can. But most importantly, live your life. Ooh-ha. Cheers, dude. Right, I'll stop that.